365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Empty backfield, trips right for Bo with a snap and throw. Steps, no throw there, going to run to the right. Now we'll throw wide open end zone. Touchdown, Oregon. Touchdown, Ducks, Tez Johnson.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Penix wants to throw, looking downfield, looking, takes a shot, Roma Dunze! Did he hold on? Yes, sir! Touchdown, Washington! Roma Dunze! Playing a Bolitnikoff kind of game. Another explosive, this time for 33, and the Huskies take the lead.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Here's Benson on the delay. Good call, well executed. Benson heading toward the end zone. 38-yard touchdown, Florida State.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Florida drops into a zone. Daniels trying to run it. Gets some space. What a move! Jaden Daniels again! Jaden Daniels, touchdown LSU! 51 yards!
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Loftus with 3 touchdown passes tonight in his second career start, trying to tie the game. Throws, end zone, no, and that's it. Carolina keeps the victory bell in double overtime.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on a Tuesday afternoon, and we will hear from Matt Prehm. He covers Oregon for 247 Sports. Last night he put up the audio of Dan Lanning and what he said about the job at A&M. And when asked about the rumors and speculation, we'll get to that in just a moment. Also, our feedback and yours, too. This is 365 Sports and Sikkim 365 app that is out there and works incredibly well. Paul Catalina right here. This is Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. Jack and Garrett in the mothership today, along with Emery and Levi with everything they do. So, Dan Lanning's name popped pretty quickly as one of, in fact, he was going to be the guy, right, that A&M was going to go after. And we've seen coaches deny things in the past. Some have done that and left the next day. Some have done that and stayed. Dan Lanning says 0 chance. He's leaving Oregon, fully committed, not motivated by the money. Said lots of coaches don't come up to the podium, deny rumors, or say they aren't leaving because they are afraid of getting egg on their face. He's not. He has stayed.
You know, if they were not in the national championship hunt, I would say this is the boldest way you can try to, navigate this line if you don't get this job. But I do believe them because they're in the national championship hunt, like right now. So if you're on the way to like a potential playoff appearance with one place, trying to get to one that hasn't been there, go to one that hasn't been there because you have maybe more resources. I don't know. Like I believe him. I think, A&M, should have given him a call, but if he says no, it doesn't surprise me. And I do tend to believe him on this one.
Yeah, I mean, he's a name that's been mentioned. It wasn't like, this was like all or nothing for Dan Lanning. And A&M hasn't really said anything about the job other than, just what we heard from their AD on Sunday. And now it's all a matter of, speculation. But he was an obvious name to have at the list, and he'd be an obvious name at the top of their list. So, yeah, I mean, that was something to kick the tires on. You knew that he was going to have to answer that question at some point or would get that question at some point. And some other guys already have as well, and there was a lot less of an answer like this one from another part of the candidates pool that we can get to. But, this one right here if he goes to A&M, then you could and look, some people probably already say you can never trust a word that a college football coach says anyways, especially in regards to an open job. But this is the most matter-of-fact, like, I'm not going anywhere statement that I've heard in a really long time. I don't think he's going anywhere. I definitely don't think he's going to A&M. I don't think this is one of those where, like, you left the door cracked open. I mean, he said as much as he possibly could with the English language that he does not plan on going to Texas A&M or leaving Oregon. I mean, it could not have been any clearer. He was as matter-of-fact as he could be. He doubled down, tripled down, and he didn't even use, like, the loose language to kind of dance around where you leave that door open, where you're like, my plan is to never leave here. My plan is never to leave here, but if somebody offered me a bunch of, like, there's always that door open. Like, he closed all the doors, basically. And so, yeah, I absolutely believe him. I don't think he's leaving Oregon. I think he understands that he's got a great job right now that pays good money, that has all the facilities, that has all of the backing, that's going to the Big Ten, that's really good right now, that's on its way to possibly making the playoff this year, who's got a quarterback who's
might win the Heisman Trophy.
The favorite to win the Heisman, although I still don't agree with that, but that's fine. He's one of the favorites to win the Heisman. So things are good in Eugene, and there's not that pull of like, well, he's from Texas, or, I know he's from the SEC, here recently, but I believe everything that he said, and I think he's going to be at Oregon, like I said.
Matt Prehm will give us his thoughts. I asked him to come on the show live. He couldn't do it because he's on his way to practice, but there's a lot of other reasons other than what Craig even brought up, including he's been like at 5 places in 5 years. He's got 2 kids at the age, although that has not always kept coaches from leaving. If you didn't hear the audio from Dan Lanning, it kind of reminded me of when he was emphatic about Colorado. And what they were doing and getting all the attention, which seemed like now months ago, and maybe it was. That's coming up at 3:30 or 3:25, and then that's recorded. And then also today, Rod Babers, who covers UT, Texas football analyst, Mark Daniels, UCF in their explosive win against Oklahoma State, We'll have Mack Rhoades, Craig's Off the Radar, John McClain, Paul's Top 5, a bunch to get to here today on the show. You mentioned one of the other names that's been bandied about. Craig, who was the other one that kind of shot it down, or it maybe not quite as emphatic as Dan Lanning?
Well, I'm trying to find it now. I thought it was Jonathan Smith who had a bit more of a vague answer.
Mike Norvell had more, like, he I don't know if he shot it down, but he
Did he call you about it?
Yeah, he got asked about it. Actually, I think Garrett has that one as well.
Jeff Traylor, of course. Yesterday we brought that up. What he had said is, and you could hear Jeff talking about focused on the year. All right, there's Norvell.
Yeah, we're so excited about what we're building here. It's a special place. I think that speaks for itself. Here's the other thing Mike Norvell knows and his agent knows. Even if he has no intention of leaving, and he's very much in the Dan Lanning category as it relates to what they're about to do, and where they are in their season and how that would line up. But the last coach that went to A&M came from Florida State, so there might be some financial shell shock going on there.
Yeah.
So he might be able to he's going to get a raise anyway. He might be able to get more money out of them by just like the looming specter of the maroon and white.
Oh, everybody's name who's legitimately could be a candidate will get something out of this if they don't themselves get the job at A&M.
Yeah, I saw Jonathan Smith's name mentioned, but I think it might have been Kalen DeBoer's actually that I was thinking of his response. Okay. That was a bit more vague. My focus, it was Kalen DeBoer. My focus is 100% on us playing ball right now. That's always a red flag answer. When it comes to a contract piece, things like that, I'll just make sure it's known that Troy Dannon has done a great job of approaching me and working together to try to make sure the continuity exists here at UW. That doesn't just happen overnight, but those efforts are certainly being made, and appreciate that. Great place. Family loves it here. There's a lot of other reasons. I've said it from day one. It's got the bones of the championships. Love the way we've been accepted into this place. It's a great place to coach. Like I said earlier, Troy's trying to do everything he can to help myself and the staff continue this journey we're on. So that was the one that I was thinking of. That's very much not the Dan Lanning response.
What I had read about Washington is that they've got everything going for them right now but the streamlined NIL collective. It's a bit more scattershot there than it is at other places, which doesn't surprise me. I think some places that might look streamlined, like you pull behind the curtain and it's just It's like that Geico commercial of the gerbils on the wheel and the Murphy tub. Like, that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
But there are some, A&M's got a really smooth NIL operation. So if he can throw out there like, look, I need everything I want. So all the things that we need, go ahead and do that. So then I'll say no.
Yeah, so they're giving you a lot of the response. And again, Matt Prehm here in just a moment. Also, this report, Rod Babers is going to join us today around 3:40, former Texas corner who does a lot of analyst work. He's been a part of this show now many times on Quinn Ewers. You kind of hearing back and forth on this, that he's expected to return to Texas for the 2024 season. If that's the case, good for him. And yet, at the same time, Craig, and Paul brought this up earlier before the show, he might have 5 games left to throw for 2,000 yards or whatever and put himself in a position to be a higher draft pick than perhaps he is right now.
If you ask me today, should he go to the draft, I would say no. If you ask me 5 games from now where Quinn Ewers is fully healthy, like hits a different level and is riding off the momentum of that, well, I mean, like you said, I don't know. Yeah, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. Finish.
No, that's where I am.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's not a surprise, given that he's missed some time, given that he's had a fine year. It hasn't been like first-round guaranteed draft pick type of a season. It's definitely not a number 1 overall pick type of a season. I mean, we read the latest mock draft last week, and that's not rocket science, but it is, a situation there with Dane Brugler where he knows who the top quarterbacks are that are being talked about, who are being evaluated and all that. And he had Quinn Ewers in the top 10 of quarterbacks.
Right.
But he had him in the bottom half of the top 10, which would probably put him at like a second-round pick. And so if you feel like you can go back to school and make really good money and play college football and be back on a loaded team that's debuting in the SEC and will probably debut as like a top 10 team with him back and with all the other guys they could have back, if not a top 5 team, and go have that history of playing in the first, Texas team in the SEC, and you're still making millions and all of that, then, yeah, I think for a guy like him who's not a guaranteed number 1 overall pick or a top 5 guy, with what you can do in NIL now, it's a lot easier to be able to make that call. He's not hurting for it like some other guys might be. And so, yeah, he's got a good situation at Texas that he doesn't really have to – oh my gosh, I got to make it. He's set to just, come back another year.
Neither decision's bad.
Improve his draft stock. And, what if all of these guys who are on the fence as far as their eligibility goes of will they go or will they stay, what if all these guys come back? I mean, Jonathan Brooks off the torn ACL, I understand that's a long ways out, but in theory, he could be back for some of next season. Jatavian Sanders, Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell, all these guys, the offensive linemen that they have, I mean, all those guys could be back next year. All those guys are juniors. I guess maybe some red shirts. I don't know. You know what I mean, though. They're eligible to come back. And so, yeah, if he does that and then most of those guys come back, then, I mean, Texas is going to be a top 3, 5 type of team. So, yeah, I think that's a decision that makes a lot of sense on his end, even though we might go like, what do you mean he's coming back?
Yeah.
For all the reasons I listed, it makes a lot of sense.
All right, Earl Campbell, Tyler Rose Award announced today. Caden Salter, a young man has grown up after some struggles early on in his life after high school or even during that time. The Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award, National Player of the Week, Liberty, winning the game against Old Dominion. 225 yards passing, rushed for 41 yards, was a part of 5 touchdowns overall, threw for 3, ran for 2 more. Jalen Milroe with another huge game. Kyron Drones with another nice game, among others involved in that voting. And good luck. Congratulations to Caden Salter.
Yeah, I know not a lot of people probably keep up with Liberty or like Liberty for that matter, but Caden Salter is a hell of a player, and he's been a reoccurring fixture on that list every single week. He's putting up huge numbers for Jamie Chadwell and the Flames, and doing it every single game where it's, a couple touchdowns through the air, if not more, a couple touchdowns on the ground, if not more. He's a true dual threat, and they're obviously a good team with him there at the helm. So, yeah, nice to see, a team that doesn't always get a lot of attention with that particular award getting some of it. It's usually, a lot of Big 12, there's a lot of Power 5. It kind of goes all over the place. Even though a lot of Texas guys are playing in the Big 12 or the SEC right now, but they're all over the country, and he's a Cedar Hill guy.
Yep.
So good to have kind of a new wrinkle there with somebody from Liberty. But Caden Salter's more than deserving. He's had a tremendous year.
Jamie Chadwell. Speaking of which, right? So I saw this earlier, and I'm thinking I'm like real PTSD when it comes to Photoshop or whatever you want to call it. Here's a tweet. He was tweeting about again. Liberty football and what's going on. And then if you leave your location on, which I didn't even know existed, at the bottom of that circle, Paul, what's in the circle?
It says Starkville, Mississippi.
So, of course, everybody lost their mind because if he's in Starkville, Mississippi, I think they just fired their football coach. So there's that. And, Garrett, did you say he turned off his notifications on other tweets, maybe,
no,
or if at all?
It's not there anymore. Yeah. But the first comment that was under it when he tweeted it was, bro's location is Starkville, Mississippi.
Okay.
So that was when he tweeted that a couple hours ago. The very first comment underneath it was the location on his actual thing, but it's not there anymore.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's wild. Whoops. It wouldn't be a coaching carousel without some weird location tracking
Flight
of some
trackers
sort,
and
those kinds of detective skills that so many college football fans out there have. So that's a interesting slip up to say the very least. And obviously we can put two and two together there. Zach Arnett, that little experiment didn't work, trying to fit square pegs into round holes, and they cut their losses. And so, turn into Jamie Chadwell. That wouldn't be a surprise by any stretch. And we just got done talking about, Caden Salter having a great year there for Liberty. And that's not a destination job where you're putting down the concrete for the next 10, 20 years necessarily. So, yeah, that would make some sense. That would be very interesting.
All right, now I want to, and this might be a little bit because of how Desmond Howard, when COVID was going on, and of course there's so many people had so many angles of how they felt about everything. But remember when Nebraska was trying to play a game?
Yeah.
And then Desmond Howard lost his mind and said the Big 12 should reprimand them, fine them, or whatever. Okay, that's fine. But now that spotlight is on your program, and he was a great player, Desmond Howard earlier on ESPN, it was totally unprofessional, the decision to suspend Jim Harbaugh, and outright disrespectful and seems really personal. This is the next 5 or 6 words. To come after one of your flagship programs, the way that the Big Ten commissioner did, and in the matter of which he did, totally a personal thing. We don't care what's going on to get Jim Harbaugh. We want to make an example out of Jim Harbaugh. My whole part, Desmond Howard, fight for your university. But because you're a flagship station, you're untouchable, that nobody can actually grill you, that if you break rules, if in fact that's the case, we kind of see it. So you can't be touched because you're the freaking flagship? That sounds arrogant to me, and I understand that, but I didn't like that comment whatsoever. Fight for your school, but I thought that was a little bit over the top.
I don't agree with that. It's personal. I don't think, if Tony Petitti didn't have the other coaches coming at him, I think he would have loved to just let the NCAA handle this. The pickle that they're in was, what can you do right now, and can you do something? And he took a big swing because there was a lot of pressure on him. It very much feels to me in the kind of Roger Goodell and Deflategate thing, where they're, instead of letting the process play itself out, they're trying to make big moves. And look, maybe it holds, and we know Michigan did something wrong, but clearly there's very undefined rules here, or at least clear punishments. So that's why they're having a hearing about it. But I don't think Tony Petitti is sitting in his office going, got to get that Harbaugh. I got to get him.
So in other words, you can't touch Michigan, but go get maybe Illinois.
I mean, I don't think he's saying that.
Well, after one of your flagship programs, the way the Big Ten commissioner did, why does he have to bring up the flagship? Why don't you just say one of your programs? Why not? And so because they're Michigan, but if it was Nebraska or if it was Iowa or someone like that, they're free game. Would he say that same thing if it was about another school in the conference? No.
No, because it's Desmond Howard.
Yeah.
What do you expect?
That's my point. I mean, that's my point. He's being. My point is, I understand who he's fighting for. I get that. But to sit there and bring up it's a flagship program, like that means you're at a different level of being touched or breaking the rules or having the focus on you. To me, that's I don't care who he is, where he went. He's supposed to be an analyst, and he has to also be at times unbiased about it, even though that's difficult.
I mean, I think there's so few media guys that are unbiased at this point, especially in college football. I think that dude's Michigan through and through, so he's defending Michigan. I don't think there's really anything other super special about it other than that. I do think he's arrogant. I think we've experienced that personally. So there is a mixture of that. I also think that's where you're coming from, is you really don't like Desmond Howard. But
I don't like the fact that it's almost as if Desmond thinks that his shit doesn't stink and he's the only one allowed to have an opinion about something, period. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, because he doesn't. And so that comes with the territory. And so he's standing up for his school. Like, I don't know. I just don't understand why you're angry about it, because I think this is to be expected, no?
He wanted to reprimand a program who wanted to play a game during COVID. And it was like, how dare you? But now Michigan cheats obviously about what they're doing. And, hey, leave us alone because we're Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just don't see the big deal. And so, I mean, you're totally entitled to feel that way. I don't think that there's an apples-to-apples comparison either, having an opinion about the COVID decisions versus, like, this. I think they're totally different things. That's fine. But, I mean, he is arrogant, and he is a Michigan guy. So, I don't know. This is par for the course from my standpoint, and I, don't even really bat an eye at it. The moment you said Desmond Howard, I started to tune out halfway anyway. So, yeah, I mean, that's to come with the territory, I guess.
All right, there's also this from John Wilner, the Pac-12 having the hearing on Washington State, Oregon State. What in the world do they have a claim to? And this was kind of funny. Advice to anyone attending the Pac-12 hearing in Colfax today: if you drive even 1 mile per hour over the speed limit, they will nail you. It's like Malakoff or Selma or Itasca.
Yeah, you've got a database of speed traps, and you need one. I've been in the car with you several times when you've gotten speeding tickets, so it's good. I'm glad that John tweeted out this information for you. I've been in the car with you twice when you should have gotten them, and then somebody showed mercy on you. One, we were in Jacksboro, Texas, which, if you don't know where Jacksboro is, if you know where nowhere is, it's in the middle of that. We got pulled over there, and the cop was very nice. He came up and he goes, "Oh, you were speeding."
Yeah.
And we were trying to get to Seymour, which is even deeper into the abyss of nowhere, to do a high school football game. And then once I was with you in Arizona and you made an illegal U-turn and thought you were all good to go, and then got a letter in the mail.
Yeah.
A month later.
That was costly.
That one was funny. It was a very illegal U-turn.
Yeah.
And we thought, oh, well, what's going to happen? Well, they've got cameras.
All right, so Paxton Smoky running from the law. So there we are with a lot of what's going on in college football. Still more to get to. There is a men's and women's doubleheader tonight at the Farrell Center. The women's basketball team playing 4th-ranked Utah today, just after 6, and the men's team coming off again what they did against Gardner-Webb. They're next on the clock soon after that in a late game at the Farrell Center.
You missed one note on the A&M coaching search. I saw somebody in the chat bring it up when I glanced over. Lane Kiffin being ruled out by Billy Liucci yesterday was that yesterday? I think it was yesterday on Twitter. But that name popped up, and Billy Liucci from Texags was pretty quick to shoot that down and say there's no chance of that happening, which was really weird. It just goes to show you how stupid social media can be, where it's like he can't even just say that, where it's like, oh, so you're too good for Lane Kiffin now. And it's like, come on, Longhorn 72. Like, just, and I get that's part of the whole stupid rock fight on Twitter. But, yeah, just simply saying that, like, oh, the Aggies are too good for Lane Kiffin. Well, you know what? I think that's a good move on their part. He's a great football coach, but I do think that they could do better and smarter than, turning right around and going from the Jimbo failed experiment to rolling the dice on Lane Kiffin. So, I don't know. I think that's a measured response. Obviously, he'd win games there. But, at the same time, I think it's intriguing to see names like Lance Leipold brought up. Yeah. I know that's not what Kansas wants to see. But, that's a name, too, that's not nearly as flashy. But, man, I think he would freaking kill it probably at A&M. Yeah. But there's a lot of other guys, so no need to rush into it. But interesting to see Liucci rule that big name out nonetheless.
What is Lane Kiffin's biggest weakness at Ole Miss?
He doesn't have the facility.
No, as far as what he's done there.
hadn't won.
He hasn't won big games.
Yeah.
What did Jimbo Fisher get fired for?
Yeah, at A&M.
Yeah.
I mean, so
well, they beat Alabama. They did.
And Lane Kiffin's got like one of those. Jimbo has 3. So, I think you're kind of splitting hairs when it comes down to what their strengths are. Like Lane's a better offensive coach than Jimbo is right now. That's very evident. But Jimbo's had better defensive coaches for the most part than Lane has. So I think you get to the Jimbo Fisher, Lane Kiffin splitting hairs. Like there's differences. I think Lane Kiffin could be an upgrade. But like we said yesterday, A&M is not looking for just a slight. They don't want the same guy 2.0. They need a whole new operating system that wins them titles. That's what they want.
All right. Do you think if they go to the guys who make the decisions, whether it's part of the administration or not, but also the donors who are going to pay, and they go, hey, we have this, he's the perfect, and some of them go yes, and some of them are going to go, yeah, but I'm not going to be able to go to my country club and brag about who we got. You think there's still some of that?
I think so. I do think that the good news about sometimes these places with a lot of money is that there's just so much that some people are just here. You guys are better at this than me. Get it done. I do think that they're in a unique position because everybody was so mad about Jimbo, and Ross Bjork didn't make that decision. Scott Woodward did. So now Ross Bjork has some of a bit of a wider highway to go look for a new coach, because he can just say like, hey guys, I wasn't the one who made that hire. That was Scott Woodward. He's the one who gave them that contract. None of that was me. Like I didn't do any of those things, but I'm here to help you clean it up.
All right, when we come back, Matt Prehm, he covers Oregon. His thoughts, he's the one that asked Dan Lanning last night the question about his name being surfaced at A&M. And his response to what Lanning said, also even more than that, all of that and more. And this is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. I have an appointment on the 21st of this month to get a crown put in. I have a temporary back left molar. Been bothering me for a long, long time. Went in to see Dr. Childress as part of making up for lost time by not taking care of the bumps and the bruises and just what you should when it comes to your dental work. Not just what is A, B, and C, but more than that. If you feel maybe a tooth or a gum, part of your gum, something doesn't feel right or something that's kind of a sharp twinge, don't wait, because then it becomes a root canal. It might be a cavity. It might not be. It could be something that's even more severe. So with Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress and his staff have been amazing to me. So I had the temporary put in after a root canal 2 or 3 weeks ago. Have the temporary in on the 21st. The new crown goes in, and that's one more get better across the board checklist now done with that. It's Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress in Robinson, Texas.
Don't miss out on the biggest deals of the year during the Black Friday sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Experience the adventure, style, and comfort of the new 2023 Jeep lineup. Shop our great selections in-store or online today and start your Jeep adventure.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Matt Prehm, 247 Sports, covers Oregon with us on 365 Sports. Matt, yesterday, or when Dan Lanning, you knew his name was going to come up, and it will again. But the question you asked, his response, and what's been the reaction since he basically said, I'm not going anywhere?
Yeah, it's not a surprise to those that cover Oregon, not a surprise to the fan base here at Oregon. He's made it abundantly clear he's committed to what he's building at Oregon. He referenced the fact that he has full commitment from a resources standpoint, from administration standpoint. He likes the people he's working with. He likes the setup he's got. He's winning at a high level. But not only is that important to him, he's made it very clear since he arrived at Oregon that he is looking to plant roots. He's not moving across the country all the time. He's done that. He has lived in like 7 or 8 different places in the last 15 years. He's gone through 5 schools in 5 years as he's moved up the coaching ranks. And he's made it very clear that for his family, it's important for them to establish roots. His wife loves living in Eugene. His kids have found a home here in Eugene, and he's made that abundantly clear. And he said that on Monday night. And I think the response from it is how brutally honest he is. And this was a moment where he showed that. And he said that a lot of coaches in this profession have an opportunity to address these types of rumors. And oftentimes coaches are afraid to do it, and they don't really give a good answer because they're afraid of having what he said, egg on their face, of doing something and saying something and then doing the opposite down the road. And he backed it up by saying, I'm not afraid of that. I'm not leaving Oregon. And, look, he may leave down the road. That may happen. Mm-hmm. But he has made it very clear that he has a 13, a 12-year-old, and a 10-year-old boy, and he wants them all to go to the same high school. He wants them all to graduate through the same school system. And that's where they're at right now. And it would have surprised me if he left down the road, no. But it would surprise me in the near future, the next 5, 10, 15 years, he's in Eugene. He has everything he wants. He has made that clear. He made it clear last night that he is taken care of wholeheartedly. He makes the base salary is $7 million, but a lot of people don't realize that he also gets an additional $1 million in deferred payments every season by the University of Oregon. He also will kick in a contract extension and a raise should they win on Saturday, because they will make a benchmark for his contract, and that can happen 3 more times on top of that. So his salary is only going to go up. He's only going to get more money. And if he keeps winning like he says he's focused on, his deal will get redone anyways, and he will get taken care of even more.
Matt, they've had coaches at Oregon who have been successful and had other jobs and walked away. And I know Chip Kelly, the lure of the NFL. Taggart went to Florida State. Cristobal to Miami. Does it, in your opinion, though, this does seem different? And does the Big Ten being a part of their future, do you think that's also something that kicks into the equation?
It's different. no doubt. The Big Ten equation factors in as well, I'm sure. But you go and you look at what Willie Taggart said when he was asked, are you going to be the head coach at Oregon in 2018? He couldn't answer the question. He dodged it. He avoided it. Mario Cristobal, when I asked him about the Miami rumors after the loss to Utah in Las Vegas, which was ending up being days later, days before he left Oregon, he couldn't answer the question. He avoided it. He tried to change subjects. He said, "Don't create narratives that aren't out there." They didn't answer the question, and that's the difference. If you go back and you watch the videos of previous coaches leaving at Oregon, and you watch Dan's, they're completely different. The tone is different. The awkwardness is completely eliminated. And Dan is also referenced. I don't know if I can't say if he's referencing those two coaches specifically, Taggart and Cristobal, but he has said that coaches have left schools and have not found the same success, and that the grass is not always greener when they leave a university. And he is all in on Eugene. His commitment to not just Oregon, but to this community is above and beyond what we have seen from previous coaches, even Chip Kelly. I think what we're seeing is Dan Lanning going through the same realization that Mike Bellotti a long time ago made when he was being courted by USC. The comfort of living in Eugene is tough to beat. And Bellotti at that time when he was being courted by USC had two kids that were in high school. They're a little bit older age than Dan Lanning's kids are, but Bellotti quickly realized I'm paid handsomely, and I can still be involved in all my kids' activities. I can still be a family man because the commute is different, the commitment is, the attention is different, and Lanning is going, I think, through that same realization that, hey, I live very close to the football facility. I can get home really quickly. I can still do school pickups. I can still go to my kids' sporting events or after-school activities and still be all committed to what is required of him here at the University of Oregon. You can't do that at other schools just because of the lifestyle and the commitment of a commute.
Matt, one more thing, and obviously Arizona State, and who knows in the Pac-12, it's top-heavy, but the midsection, even though like Arizona's made this run, Washington State, Colorado have a free fall. They have ASU this week. You don't see anything at all. And he also, by doing that, did he eliminate any potential distractions just because of social media and everybody knows everything?
I think this team's pretty locked in regardless, but if there was any doubt, he ended that quickly. And it also helps that while Arizona State's record isn't very good, they just went to the Rose Bowl last weekend and kicked the butt of UCLA and probably delivered maybe the final nail in Chip Kelly's coffin at UCLA. This team is pretty focused, pretty locked in, and he probably eliminated any doubt if there was any, but knowing this team, I would be pretty surprised if there was serious fear with his own players. One
of the things that you hear is that with Phil Knight, his age, that maybe he's involved, which he is. We understand that with Oregon, Nike, et cetera. He's involved in a lot of places. But that, and I'm asking you this, that if in fact that day comes when Phil Knight is no longer a part of anything, he's already got locked in for Oregon, but they have other people, right, that would take control of being able to fund whatever Oregon needs?
They've got other boosters, yeah, absolutely. But do they have other boosters besides Phil Knight? No, and no one does. I mean, outside of Oklahoma State and Boo Pickens, but Oregon's got successful boosters. They've got high-profile boosters, but they won't be able to just replace everything that Phil Knight does. It will have to be by a collective group, and even then, it will be tough. But Phil Knight has positioned this program and this university beyond just football for years to come, even when he's no longer on this earth.
I'll tell you what's been impressive, Matt. Thanks for your time. Is how Oregon has responded from that loss to Washington. Doesn't mean they haven't been challenged, but you could see a collision course. Obviously, they have to take care of business against ASU, and then that, my goodness, what the emotions will be anytime, much less this year, of course, with Oregon State. Thank you for your time on the update with Dan Lanning. Appreciate it. Matt Prehm, 247 Sports, covers Oregon. Again, this is 365 Sports. Appreciate Matt Prehm for jumping on with us. He was on his way to practice, could not do it later in the show, so a chance to record that. Up next, Rod Babers covers Texas. His thoughts on, the game with Iowa State, Texas getting through the weekend against TCU, and also maybe even his thoughts if, in fact, Quinn Ewers decides to come back for another year. And this is 365 Sports. I shared a text and, in fact, spoke with Samantha Duvall, shared a text with Aaron Duvall. TexasBeefHouse.com. You know the product, aged Wagyu beef. Unbelievable, the ranch and what they have, the store and the business that they have in White House, Texas, just outside of Tyler. Aged Wagyu beef. They had the auction that we discussed for quite some time. The auction on Saturday, I sent a text to Samantha and said, how did it go? She said it was unbelievable. It was incredible. Then spoke to her on the phone. They sold about quadruple the amount of product that they thought they would. And now they're thinking about, okay, maybe we need to do this again, as they're, of course, in the middle or right next to getting into the holidays for the end of the year. Quadruple. And they expected a really good response, and they got one. People online, those on Zoom, also even phone calls are in person. TexasBeefHouse.com, because everyone now learning more and more about the quality of what they have with aged Wagyu beef. So that was exciting because some of you were involved in that too. We appreciate your support. So do they. TexasBeefHouse.com.
The right call can make all the difference on and off the field. I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. When it's time for a new car, truck, or SUV, Bird Colgin Ford is the right call. Come check out our award-winning lineup of best-selling models in their class, like the Mustang, Explorer, Expedition, F-150, and Super Duty. Make the right call for your next vehicle at Bird Colgin Ford. Bird Colgin Ford proudly supports Baylor Athletics. Sic 'em Bears.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and more. New bikes arrived and are waiting for you to test yourself, compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power, and with indoor cycling classes every day. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, treadmills, new elliptical machines on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and a tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman, assistant junior pro Kenna, adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website, wacotennis.com, or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Rod Babers joins us, 365 Sports. Rod, a part of the Texas Football Analyst on Texas Football, and also on the Horn during Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. with Craig and Paul. I'm David Smoak. Rod, thanks for your time. We have Jonathan Brooks, Quinn Ewers' future. And then I saw your tweet. Texas, they aren't yet a 4-quarter team, but they're a 4th-quarter team. Your thoughts about what you've seen? They've been able to move and survive and move on. And again, the win on Saturday in Fort Worth against TCU.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team, right? Keep in mind, last year they were outscored in the 4th quarter at overtime combined, and they were losing 4th quarters egregiously. And now, I know the last couple of weeks, obviously, they've lost the 4th quarter. But if you go look at it overall, they found a way to win and make clutch plays in critical moments. That is something, guys, they were not doing last season. And I think it is a sign of growth for this team. Now, I will admit that this is a team that, they play spectacular stretches of football, right? Probably 12 minutes to 15 minutes in a game. But there's also going to be a similar stretch of football in that very same game, kind of the best of times and the worst of times, where they're going to have, lulls, mental errors. They're going to have lapses in focus, and they're going to play distracted almost play like they're complacent. And it happens usually when Texas has a lead or they're up in games. We've seen it 3 of the last 4 games, take away a 20-plus point lead and allow their opponents to come back into the game if they've been able to win it on either a game-winning goal line stand or been able to win it with a clutch play like A.D. Mitchell's catch. So the concern is that, yes, they are a team that finds a way to win games in clutch moments, but they are trending toward another loss because their worst stretches of football are starting to come at the end of these games in the 4th quarter, and it's only a matter of time before walking this tightrope between destiny and disaster is going to come back to haunt the horn.
I like that, Rod. The tightrope between destiny and disaster that's good. The disaster of this week is about Jonathan Brooks. I mean, he was established himself as the bell cow of the offense, and in the slowest, most sluggish times, he could keep the chains moving and things churning. Now, they certainly have some depth behind them of guys that they believe in and like, but how big of a loss is this for Texas given how well he was playing?
And guys, I'm not going to lie to you, it's devastating. It is absolutely devastating. I mean, think about it. You had the best running back room in the country last season with Bijan and Rojo, and it was understandable. Everybody went, okay, that's going to be a drop-off. When Bijan and Rojo are drafted, of course there are, because you have the best running back room in the country. How can there not be some type of regression? And the truth is, because of Jonathan Brooks, by the way, a guy who didn't even start the first 2 games, guys, he didn't win the running back competition. And he actually persevered, and because C.J. Baxter couldn't finish the entire game without getting dinged up, Jonathan Brooks comes in, and it's probably one of the biggest and most pleasant surprises of the season for the Longhorns, maybe of the college football season. He was a front runner, guys, for the Doak Walker Award. He was on his way to definitely being a finalist, but he had a good shot to win the award for being the best running back in the country. Statistically, through 10 games, he had actually had stats that were better or comparable to Bijan Robinson. So the truth is, guys, he had been the MVP on offense. There's no doubt about it, because nobody thought that you would have a running game as potent as this. And now, without him, you got C.J. Baxter, who's a guy that I admit he's healthy now, but couldn't make it through an entire game early in the season. And he's a freshman. You also got Jaden Blue, who's explosive, but he's the guy that can run on the perimeter and on the edge. I don't expect him to be a guy that can hurt you in the interior runs. He's not a power running game guy. They got Savion Red, who was running the Red Cat, their version of the Wildcat. They'll probably have to now put him more of a traditional role at running back. And then there's Keelan Robinson, who didn't play last week, and we don't really know his status. So the truth is, guys, Starks will have to get really innovative and very creative about how to juice up this running game. Now, it wouldn't be a problem because I would assume Starks normally would just pivot to being a pass-first team, and why not? You got a quarterback that's one of the better young quarterbacks in the country, and Quinn Ewers, he's back. You got the whole complement of weapons, X-Man, A.J. Mitchell, and J.T. Sanders. Nobody in the conference can really line up and cover the man-to-man, but he's not healthy either. And now you're dealing with him with an issue about the severity of his injury. So I'm not sure you can throw it 40 times in a game without exposing your quarterback to much injury. So here's the conundrum. You don't have a potent running game, and you can't totally lean on the pass without exposing, potentially re-injuring your starting quarterback. This is where Starks makes his money.
Man, that is interesting. And, not a team that's the most fun to play probably, Rod, huh? When you're looking at, like, how can we attack a defense and we're not quite 100%. Let's go play Matt Campbell and, that defensive staff and those minds over there in Ames.
Exactly right. I'm with you. Guys, John Haycock, listen, we've talked about the 3-high-3-down defense, and Texas has actually faced that scheme the last 3 weeks, right? K-State runs a version of it. TCU runs a version of 3-high-3-down. It's probably the most popular defense in the Big 12, but nobody has popularized the 3-high-3-down quite like John Haycock. And here's the thing, guys, I've studied it. And if you look at Stark's offensive productivity since he's been the play caller / head coach at Texas, his offenses are less effective, they're less efficient, and they're less explosive versus the 3-high-3-down defense. There's no doubt about it. I've done the numbers. Essentially, they're talking about scoring a touchdown less per game on average versus 3-high-3-down defenses. And now you're going into Ames on the road. First true road test since Alabama, guys. The truth is, all their road games have been in the state of Texas, right? You were in H-Town. Hell, half of that crowd was Texas fans. You were in Fort Worth. About a third to probably, a little bit more than that crowd were Longhorn fans. You had the Texas OU game. That's a neutral site. So now you got a true road test. That's a little bit concerning. Last time you were in Ames, you were embarrassed. And that's also an issue. And you got the injuries that are all creeping up the Longhorns. That's the injuries on defense, too, guys. Today, Barron got nicked up in that TCU game. He's probably your third best defensive player behind Savondre Sweat and Jalen Ford. So we don't really know his status. And, of course, the injuries on offense. So I got to tell you, I'm a little concerned considering the way the Longhorns have been playing lately. This is a game where I would say can choke the life out of the clock, play really good defense, and potentially make this a fourth quarter game, and then anything can happen.
Rod, sticking on Quinn there, I mean, you saw the reports inside Texas mentioning that the odds, I guess, are favoring that Quinn Ewers could come back next season, or that's the way that he's leaning. And we were having a conversation the other day of just before we knew there'd be any word on potentially with Quinn here anytime soon, but just the number of impact underclassmen that they have. Like, they could have a massive draft class, or they could have a massive bunch of guys come back next year and like a top 3 team to start the season in the SEC. But with Quinn, I mean, any thoughts just on his game this year and kind of where he fits, and just any of the conversation about that NFL aspiration?
Yeah, I think listen, he's been fast-tracked, right, his entire career. It seems like his family and his circle, they fast-tracked him. That's why he left high school early and went to Ohio State, and then left Ohio State, transferred, came to Texas. And I believe now, because of the depth of this upcoming quarterback class, it's supposed to be historically deep. Right? You're talking about specifically 5-6 quarterbacks drafted in the first round. I don't know if his play has been the reason his stock has dropped. His draft stock has dropped. I think it's ultimately just the depth of the class, right? Supply and demand. So I think now he's probably being mocked second, maybe even third round, when he was being mocked prior to the season in the first round. And I think he's probably been a guy projected to be a first rounder since he was a high school junior, something like that, right? So I think now people are thinking, okay, well, if he's going to be a second or third rounder in this deep quarterback class, how about we wait till 2025 potentially, and then he'll, in a less crowded quarterback class, he'll potentially rise to the top of that draft class. Now, the problem is you're going to lose all your receivers pretty much. X-Man is gone. A.D. Mitchell is gone. J.T. Sanders is probably gone. Jay Witt, Jordan Winston is probably gone as well. And you're going to bring back a lot of your offensive linemen. Probably only one offensive lineman is going to leave. That's Christian Jones. So you'll bring back that group. But, you're going to have to go find some receivers in the transfer portal, which Texas could do. So if he comes back he's got to, understand that he's going to be bringing up a young core of receivers, and that may affect his, productivity as a quarterback. But there's no doubt about it. This is a first world problem, gentlemen. We're talking about potentially Quinn Ewers coming back, and then you'll have Malik Murphy and Arch Manning. You know that the blue chip transfer rate is around 65%. So, you're not going to keep all of those guys. But, man, what a first world problem to have, that you could end up either having Quinn come back, a veteran quarterback, or, hey, man, you got to hand it over to Arch Manning potentially for the future. So Texas is in a good position no matter what Quinn chooses. But I think Quinn's trying to keep his options open, because now he thinks he can come back to school potentially with NIL, make as much money if he would have made as a second or third round pick in the league.
Rod, if in fact that does occur, did Malik Murphy do enough on tape or film or whatever to be a hot commodity inside the transfer portal, if in fact he even looks at that option based on how the dominoes fall?
Yeah, I think he has done enough. I mean, the reports were after the spring game, there were several Power 5 programs that were, they weren't supposed to, they were just tampering, but they were making inquiries. And that's why Texas decided to up their NIL package to Malik Murphy to keep him on campus. That's not the only reason he stayed. He wants to be here, but there's no question, guys, he's a West Coast guy. How many quarterbacks in the Pac-12 are leaving? Leaving their school. That's the most loaded quarterback conference in the country right now. So he could easily go to one of those Pac-12 schools, be closer to home. And I think he's gotten some film now out there in a real game that he'll have somewhat interested. The truth is, I do think he's going to end up being odd man out, especially if Quinn Ewers comes back. He's going to be the guy that's odd man out, in my opinion. You got the celebrity quarterback for the first family of football in Arch Manning. Guys, I was on campus with Chris Sims in the Major Applewhite. It's something about a celebrity quarterback, guys. They usually end up on the field sooner rather than later. Y'all know that.
Right, yeah. I mean, you mentioned the Pac-12. Bo Nix will be gone. Michael Penix will be gone. Caleb Williams will be gone. And, UCLA has a young freshman but might have a new coach. So that's just those 4 schools right there that all go to the Big Ten that could have wide open doors for Malik Murphy.
Exactly. And he's a West Coast guy, and Stark loves him. I think Stark, honestly, guys, might help him out. He may be one of those situations where Stark actually helps him out, try to find the best spot for him. Because Stark's a big fan of what he did by staying with the program, long enough for them to stabilize the quarterback position, even though he had other opportunities.
Hey, Rod, thank you very much. Real quickly, if you could do this in a minute, what has been the reaction in Austin to the Jimbo Fisher firing?
Oh, man, it's so good. First of all, we don't want Jeff Traylor to go there, because Jeff Traylor's a damn good coach. So please make a mockery of this, Aggies. Go get Lane Kiffin or somebody like that. But we know this. The Aggies are sleeping giants. They get this hire right, and they got to get it right. That could be a problem for Texas. A lot of people believe that Texas ascent, guys. Texas ascent right now coming back. Maybe the reason that the Aggies, with less of the Longhorns coming into the SEC next year, maybe that's why they decided, hey, guys, we got to change something. We got to shake this up. We cannot allow our program to regress while Texas is on the come. So I think that might be a big part of it.
There's no might or maybe.
Yeah, Rod. It's the case. Thank you very much, Rod. Appreciate it. As always, great stuff from Rod Babers. Played the game at Texas, also analyzes UT as they head to Ames for this weekend, Saturday night game, and right now atop the Big 12 at 9-1.
Yeah, I wasn't going to follow up too much on the comments there about him assuming that Worthy and Mitchell will be gone. I mean, I could see that, but that would obviously be a little bit of – I mean, that's just the point, though, is that Texas has a lot of guys who are going to make very interesting NFL decisions here in the next couple of months. So they're going to have a loaded draft class, most likely. Either way, there'll be some combination. But, yeah, I mean, there's that opportunity. You lose those receivers, but you get Ewers and some other guys back. So that'll be fascinating to watch, especially given that it's going to be building to the run-up of their big grand old SEC debut as well. And if all those guys come back, man, they would be way up there at the top of the rankings, you'd imagine.
I'm making, although I don't have the executive decision-making skills, we're not going to break here. We're going to go to Mark Daniels in a minute. But do you have the tweet that I sent to you, Garrett, on the Big 12? This is from the Barry Trammell, the website now Sellout Crowd. That the Big 12, remember all the tiebreakers, and there was a chance with a 3-way tie that head-to-head may not matter, that would have maybe perhaps, based on the rest of the next 2 weeks, Oklahoma State, even though they'd beaten OU. Barry Trammell reporting that the Big 12 is going to clarify that, where in fact head-to-head probably will matter. Remember 2014, but it was between two teams and it didn't matter. And, of course, there are some going, wait a minute, you can't do that with 2 weeks left in the season.
I agree.
It's such a Big 12 thing to do. Where, all for one or whatever. What was it, one true champion, and then was the first year they had a mess. We'll ask Mack Rhoades about that and how much they have not had their AD meetings this week. They do that after all of the college football rankings are released. But we'll ask Mack about that today around 4:20. You cannot change the rules that are in place 2 weeks left in the season because there's some sort of a loophole.
Yeah, I mean, as much as you'd love to see them like rub salt in the OU wound if they possibly could, just like you'd love to see them do it if, it were Texas in that same situation. I know there's a lot of people that would love that, but I think a lot of those same people would also acknowledge, like, yeah, that's messed up. You can't do that like right now. You can't do that with 2 weeks to go. Also, oh, no, wait, we're going to change this now. It's going to be different. No, that comes across really amateur and unfair, quite frankly. I mean, the rules were the rules when the season started. They've been those rules for 10 weeks, 11 weeks, and now you're going to tweak it there at the very end when the heat is on. I don't agree with that. I think that's a bad look.
The conference will clarify language for the possibility of a three-way tie among teams that have not faced each other, a potentially huge move that would be presented to ADs on Wednesday. Paul, can we get Mark on? Is it okay?
Sure.
Again, we're on until 6. We appreciate your time. Mark Daniels. We could, and I don't know if it's going to be Coach Malzahn or a player from UCF later in the week, after speaking with Justin Wilson, who's the media relations director for football for UCF. But we don't need to wait till Thursday to talk about what they were able to do for what it meant to UCF. Obviously, Oklahoma State's still alive in the Big 12 race, but what it meant to UCF and an absolute just downpour of weather, but also of points in blowing out the Cowboys. Mack Rhoades again in about 20 minutes. The conference will clarify for the possibility of a three-way tie among teams that did not face each other. Under the current rules, the head-to-head aspect of a trio tying would not matter if not all three teams played each other, even if one team beat the other two. That would be interesting. In such a scenario, could develop in 2 weeks should Oklahoma State, OU, and Kansas State win out, finish 7-2 in the Big 12. OSU has wins over both Oklahoma and Kansas State. The Sooners and the Wildcats did not play because of the expansion to 14 teams. So there's what that is and what they're going to try to see what they do. That will be interesting. Wonder if Joe Castiglione now is on the phone trying to go, what are we doing? Wait a minute, what are we doing? And so there you are with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, it's embarrassing to kind of have the rule be this much of a storyline this late in the year of like, oh, well, now we need to scramble to clarify and should have just gotten it right the first time. But, stuff happens. But, yeah, I do think it would be a bad look to change it this late in the year. Obviously, OU fans who are seeing that they could be potentially hurt by it are up in arms, as you would imagine. But, yeah, let's see, I guess, what the conference has to say, and then we can all, if the conference wasn't going to make any comment, then, man, bring out the torches and pitchforks and all of that. But let's see what they say first before roasting them for changing it or for not changing it. It's an interesting little subplot, though, that I wasn't expecting to this whole thing. But it's the Big 12, so it's very on brand in so many ways for this to be an issue and not a surprise.
Hey, Brett Yormark wasn't going to just skate through and not eventually the Russian judge was going to find something, right?
Yeah,
So far it was like, he's these last couple of years, it's been this like beautiful dance of everything going on. And then occasionally, you know what? You're going to slip up and not land the triple Lutz.
Yeah, no, there you go. You're going to, your toe's not pointed quite correctly, and it's not a 9.9, but a 9.5. But Mark Daniels, we're about to call him now, running just a couple minutes late. But that Scott Wright, who covers Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, had mentioned this in an article over the weekend about the possibilities of the tiebreaker guidelines and head-to-head or whatever. But, yeah, if you're in a three-way tie and you beat the other two straight up and didn't lose to them because you beat them, there's no way you can sit there and say that team would not get part of an advantage. Now, a lot of things still have to happen for that to be the case, but that's interesting that wasn't looked at prior to maybe this past weekend. We're now joined by Mark Daniels, UCF Hall of Famer, by the way, inducted now and voice of UCF Athletics. And, Mark, thank you so much for your time. What was that scene like at the Bounce House on Saturday?
Well, look, it was a great, it was a great day for a lot of reasons. Obviously, the outcome, the way the game had gone, beating a ranked team, space a game for UCF, which is pretty special around here. And then, celebration on what was a tough day weather-wise. I mean, fans sat through a torrential downpour in the second quarter. And, feel good moment on a season that started off really well and, had a bump midway and maybe it's turning on the upswing right now. But it was a football game where things that had gone against UCF during the stretch of these Big 12 games where you're turning the ball over, you're not converting the big third down, you're missing a tackle, all goes the other way. And some of those things began to fall into favor for UCF. They capitalized on Oklahoma State turnovers and then had some great performances, obviously by R.J. Harvey, John Rice Plumlee, and the defense played its best game of the season. So all those things together led to what became a very lopsided football game.
Mark, how much of this is, I mean, sometimes a unit can get like so kicked in that their pride is challenged and all these things that in the moment where you feel like, okay, this is the worst matchup for them because Ollie Gordon has been running through people like tissue paper, and this has just not been a good thing. Did it just come down to, you know what, not today? And they just had that moment where it said, I don't care what happens after, these 60 minutes, but today we're going to go get Ollie Gordon.
I think it's some of that. I think it's also UCF made some defensive adjustments. Look, teams that run the ball successfully on UCF are pretty big numbers. And they were successful running outside the tackles. UCF, I think, made some adjustments to kind of avoid that, where it wasn't, as open for guys to run. But then a couple of things happened, guys. UCF takes the ball, scores up 7-0. Oklahoma State has moved the ball down the field, being a little bit pass first on that drive. Then Ollie Gordon gets stripped, and UCF recovers, and they scored 14-0. Now the game's changed a little bit. I'm not saying Oklahoma State abandoned their efforts to run, but it was a case, I think, UCF was more like, okay, let's see if they're going to beat us throwing the football. They had some passes against a zone that opened up, but Ollie Gordon got himself stuffed a few times. I think he got frustrated a little bit, and then maybe the emotion of, hey, this is now starting to click. And then I think they benefited, obviously, from the turnovers. Look, a key moment, it's 24-0. Start of the third quarter, Oklahoma State drives down, opted to kick a field goal instead of maybe going for a touchdown. And then they get a hit, fumble, and they recover. And I'm sure Mike Gundy's thinking, hey, we score here, it's 24-10. They got to psychologically begin to think about, for example, a Baylor football game. Well, tip ball interception. And then R.J. Harvey goes 92 yards, and that's just kind of how the day went for UCF. But I do think there's something to the snowball where your defense begins to gain some confidence, and guys begin to realize, hey, we can do this. And then you have some success on doing stuff, and some, guys step up and make big plays. And I think UCF hopes that's the case now as they move forward in these final two games of the regular season, trying to get at least one more win to be bowl eligible.
R.J. Harvey's had a lot of nice rushing performances, but what is it about these last 5-6 weeks in particular? I mean, he flirted with 100 yards throughout the first half of the season, but he's on a tear right now, 133, 101, 100, 164, 206. Just everything kind of gelling offensively. Is that the case?
Yeah, it hasn't had a guy like that since Kevin Smith was doing it for 2,000 years ago. And the thing about RJ, again, he's a great story. I think we discussed before, is a high school legend quarterback here, went to Virginia, transferred to UCF, was going to be the starting quarterback a couple of years ago, blows out his knee, isn't even sure he's going to play football, battles to get his way back in the mix last year, and this year has just taken it to a different level. He's strong, physical guy. I say sometimes in a broadcast, some of his best runs are just getting back to the line of scrimmage. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you what stood out the last several weeks, patience. UCF has moved a lot of bodies around the offensive line. We started our fourth different player at center on Saturday, but it's patience of allowing a hole to open and then selling Tiggy Magenta and then a cut here and a cut there. And he's just been an absolute game changer for UCF. Tremendous confidence. He's eighth in the country now in rushing in a conference that's so good with running backs. And UCF's going to see one, Texas Tech this week. But he's an easy guy to root for. The 92-yard run, he showed an extra gear that I think surprised some people as he was, breaking free and the final 40 yards. So he's been a confident guy, but I think his patience has really stood out. Plus, the other thing, guys, the last couple of weeks, it's a healthier John Rice Plumlee. Now the passing game is, now you got to take into account for that. And I think that's helped RJ as well.
How much do you feel like the experience of this first year? There have been the ups and the downs, but obviously what that was unbelievable what they accomplished. How much now does Gus feel what they need, knowing what they now need, the attrition and the long schedule of the Big 12?
You can read about it. You can have people project what's going to happen, but you got to go play it, guys. And I think UCF has seen firsthand about areas that they know that they've got to continue to recruit, combination of the portal, combination of high school. And right now, Gus is in a position to have a top 30 class. It would be the highest rated class ever for UCF. But I think they've experienced now the quality of offensive lines that they've gone up against, defensive lines in depth, the size of safeties that you're seeing guys that are 6'2", 220 and things like that. So now you've experienced it. But I think in the sense, look, your record's what it is. I mean, UCF's 5-5, they're 2-5 in the conference. But I think, and everybody can play this game, the one game that UCF was in, that was the Kansas football game. They got blown out. You can't sugarcoat that. Kansas State, with the ball fourth quarter down by one score. You make a mistake here on the road, they win. The Oklahoma game, you're right in the football game, obviously, there. The Baylor game, you guys know what happened there. The West Virginia game, you've got the ball late third quarter, down 3 with momentum. They get a blindside hit, fumble, and score right afterwards. So you've been in really every Big 12 game except the Kansas football game, and yet the difference of what you're seeing may be deeper defensive line, bigger offensive line, more experience in certain areas. So I think it's not that you feel good about where the record's at, but I think Gus and his staff say, okay, we got an idea now where we've got to continue to upgrade and get more depth in order to compete in this league. But I think they also feel like, look, we've been in most of these games. And as you guys know far better than UCF does, so many Big 12 games come down to a possession or a few plays here or there, the difference of having a really good season versus not having a good season. So I think it's been a great learning experience to figure out where you are and where you've got to go. But at the same time, I don't think UCF feels like, man, this is a 5-year building project.
Yeah, I don't think with that recruiting hotbed that they have too in Florida that they should worry about that either. Like that you can get some guys to come in there pretty quickly and maybe solve some deficient areas. Mark, what do you think that they might? I mean, I don't think they're going to, like, I'm not saying change coordinators, but like bend some things a little bit schematically to change who they're going to see most of the time based on who they saw most of the time in the AAC?
Well, I think you get a better idea about the styles and philosophies of the team you play. Again, you could read about it, you can talk to coaches that have played against, but then you got to go play these games to get an idea. And look, I'm a big believer you become who your competition is. And I mean, it doesn't mean you're stuck in the middle of the pack, but, you know, when UCF goes to the American, those teams become who you're competing against. You measure your talent versus them, and that's what the league is. It develops a personality. The Big 12, as you guys know, for years, hey, we're just going to fling it up and down, and all of a sudden people began to play defense. You find some great running backs. So I don't think it's wholesale changes as far as a philosophy standpoint. I think it's a case of we've got to just get some depth in areas, continue to recruit high-level players, and as you said, in the state of Florida, that's something that UCF will have an opportunity to do. But I don't think Gus has changed his vision of what he wants to build. I just think they have a better idea seeing it firsthand, like, okay, you know, maybe we thought we needed 2 or 3 at this position. Maybe we need 3 or 4 and things like that, because you can find quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers to play in this system and so forth. But do you have the quality and depth at linebacker and at safety? And, you know, if somebody goes down in your defensive line, do you feel like you've got that kind of depth? And I think UCF is learning about this league that you've got to be able to have that sustained depth in case you lose somebody. So again, I don't think it's a change of philosophy. I think it's, hey, we're growing. We know where we want to go. Let's keep adding pieces to it.
Mark, at 5-5 now, 2 cracks to get bowl eligible. Just given the 5-game slide there in the middle of the season, how huge, and the first year in the Big 12, how big would that be to get bowl eligible, first of all? And just thoughts on, you know, heading to Lubbock for the first time coming up this weekend and that being the first of these 2 cracks at it.
Yeah, look, it'd be fantastic. And again, I always believe that seasons are jerk. You know, if you tell somebody a record, it doesn't tell the story until I tell you where you were and how you got there. And I think for UCF, you get off to a good start. You know, you win a good game at Boise, and you kind of think, how good may they be? And, you know, they've had an up-and-down season. And they experienced a 5-game losing streak. Gus had never experienced that. There's not a single player on UCF's team that ever experienced that, you know, in their time. And then you fight hard against a rival in Cincinnati. You win a game there. You feel better about yourself than you have a game like you did against Oklahoma State. And now you're like, wait a minute, okay, maybe we are who we thought we were going into the beginning of the season. But the answer to your question is it would be fantastic. They've got a chance to go on the road here against a Texas Tech team that also wants to be bowl eligible. They've got Texas coming up the next week. You can imagine they know how important it is to try to get a home win. A very good running back there. Two head coaches that know each other quite well. Obviously, Gus was an incredibly successful high school coach in Arkansas, while Coach McGuire in Texas. Gus mentioned in his press conference yesterday he recruited players from a coach's high school. I think he said his stepmom worked at the school. So there's some familiarity there, respect. And, I think UCF fans know about the history of going to Lubbock as far as the great crowd support. I think it's going to be exciting. Look, I say this, guys, and I hope fans that have come to UCF, I have loved our journey through the Big 12. Like we talked about what kind of year you anticipated on the field. I look forward to going to some of the new places, and the fans have been nothing but incredible in all the places we've gone to. We've heard about the hospitality in Lubbock. I think we look forward to that. And I think fans such as Baylor fans that came to Orlando, West Virginia fans, Oklahoma State fans, I hope they've experienced a good time as well. So we're excited about it. I think UCF's got this new sense of confidence that, hey, things that we know we can do, well, we've got to do. They know they got a tough matchup against another team in the same situation, trying to get a 6th win. So I think it's the makings of a really good football game, and UCF would love to go on the road, get a win, and come home, play Houston, and try to keep that thing going. And, again, you got to earn it, but if somehow you win at Lubbock, you come home and you beat Houston, and you're 7-5, and you go to bowl game, and if you can win that, then you go from 5-game losing streak to a 5-game winning streak into an offseason where you feel really good about yourself.
Mark, we're also glad you're a part of the Big 12. You've been one of the great guys that we've gotten to know, along with other voices of programs and other coaches. Thank you very much. Congrats on a great win, and good luck in Lubbock. Thank you for your time, and congratulations again on the actual induction into the Hall of Fame. You're the best. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Mark Daniels, voice of UCF Athletics. Mack Rhoades, Baylor AD, is next. All right, this is 365 Sports.
All right, Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on right now. Highway 6 is a mess with construction, I should say. So at Richard Carr, they are trying harder to make buying a new Buick GMC or Cadillac easier. And when it comes to Richard Carr, that's just not the name of the dealership. That is a good man that's at the heart of that dealership. Behind the dealership, Richard Carr, not only a place that people count on, but a person that people count on, a person that people love over the dealership. So go over there and experience the great customer service, the great leadership over at Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac right now, and avoid that traffic as best you can. But because there is some traffic to avoid, well, they are making it worth your while when you get on over to the dealership. Right now, power and strength and a stunning interior. They got the GMC Sierra truck, a truck that has it all. You get holiday savings on cars and trucks happening right now, but when it comes to the 2023 GMC Sierras in stock, qualified buyers get 0.9% financing and no payments until 2024 on those new 2023 GMC Sierras in stock. You also, if you're a military or first responder, can save an additional $500 on the new 2023 GMC Sierras in stock. So again, holiday savings on cars and trucks happening now. Go check it out over at the dealership. But if you're not in the market for a new vehicle, you can still go on over there and get the best for your trade. They trade for the best, so they have a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks in stock as well. Around 100 used cars and trucks to choose from, all of them inspected with a 172-point inspection and the Richard Carr seal of approval. It means you can take it to the bank. The financing goal at Richard Carr is 100% credit approval. They say yes when others say no. So it all starts at the top with the great Richard Carr, but it trickles on down. Donnie, a person that helped me out quite a bit when I was having some issues with body work and needing to get my car fixed up, that's where I went, and it was easy peasy. Got me in and out there in a little amount of time, and my car has been running like brand new ever since. You could never tell that it was in any kind of a wreck or accident or anything along those lines. So that's my experience. It was A1. Many others can vouch for that as well, but go see for yourself right now. For 24 years in Central Texas, they've built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs, run by proud Central Texans and proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
TFNB, your bank for life, is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
3
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Aaron Duvall, owner, Texas Beef House. Aaron, it's premium grade East Texas beef, and you're located just outside of Tyler. No hormones, no antibiotics, no steroids, the kind of beef that people want. And then also your label is what catches people's attention as well.
Yes, we have a all-natural, pasture-raised Wagyu beef. It's a USDA label. That means our cattle never spend any time in the feed yard. They go straight from the pasture to the day of harvest, and we oversee the whole process from the beginning of the genetic choices when we make these matings to the time the calves are born, to the feed choices, all the way through when the animals are harvested. So we oversee the whole thing as a family, and we just believe, life's too short to eat average beef. So we offer people a chance to step up their game and try Wagyu beef at TexasBeefHouse.com.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Welcome back to 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Our weekly segment with Baylor Director of Athletics, Mack Rhoades, is brought to you by Edward Jones Investment Brokers, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, Cam Heathcott, and Chuck Verno. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Appreciate the sponsors of what we do every day on 365 Sports, and you, the audience. We appreciate you, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, David Smoak, and Baylor's Director of Athletics, Mack Rhoades, with us on 365 Sports. Mack, thank you very much for your time. Does what you see in the college football landscape, which was kind of a very busy weekend when it comes to coaches, does that ever, when you're looking at anything yourself, ever affect your emotions or the decision-making of what you have to do?
No, I appreciate that question. I think it's certainly a good question. Every one of those, particular institutions, those circumstances are always different for each one. I would tell you, that it not really doesn't impact my thought process, my decision process. I've always worked hard to make decisions based on, sound criteria. Make decisions where, where I'm blocking out the noise and the outside influences. And so again, based on sound criteria, gut, not emotions, to truly try to get to, what I think is best for the program. So, am I aware of the changes? Yeah, absolutely. But do they influence my decision making process? No.
A couple of weeks ago, I had a chance, not this week, but last, to sit down with Dave as I do and enjoy that time with him. But he even brought up that he understands the storm, so to speak, around his name right now because of the results of this season. Do you get the impression, or is he right now coaching for his job these last couple of weeks?
I would say that, I don't think that Dave looks at it, that way at all. I think Dave is focused and I completely, support it. He's focused on, what he has to do, right, to win, our next opponent, versus TCU, right? We have a saying that, 1-0, and for him to be focused and on that next opponent and give ourselves, give our young men the very best chance that we can have in going up to Fort Worth and playing well and having an opportunity to beat TCU. I think our coaches, that's where their mindset is, but and so that's his approach, and that's my expectation. That's what we're focused on. We're focused on TCU.
Mack, how much more complicated in the last few years has the math become when making decisions about improvements for a team for a season next? Whether that's, do you spend more on your coaching staff? Do you spend more on one thing? Do you have to point money in different directions outside of the traditional avenues? Is it much more difficult to make those decisions because of now you've added even more money and more finances into this with NIL and all those other things?
Yeah, I think, Paul, I think the thing that's changed, change it for everybody is, can you really be a developmental program, given the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness. And so I think the fluidity of roster, every year and how that looks and, name, image, and likeness and, particularly collective name, image, and likeness and, how that's going to impact roster. Obviously, when you think about, basketball and the sizes of those rosters, 13, in terms of men's basketball, 15 in terms of women's basketball, when we think about allowable scholarship student athletes, that's much different than 85 with football. And, by the time you include walk-ons, just call it 110. And so, that's what's changed dramatically, and has really flipped our industry, upside down. Are you having conversations certainly about additional position here or there? Any type of, I guess, personnel, additions, subtractions. Those are all part of the conversation.
Mack, how often do you think that because of when coaches become hot commodities, you've had some yourself where you've been, and everybody seems to have one, how much do you feel like, and this is a general question, do colleges, universities, or athletic administrators bid against themselves when it comes to extensions?
Yeah, that's a great question, and, I think reality is, there's some positions that are open right now that, there'll be some candidates that are either targets and or, they're interviewed for, right. And they'll end up, getting a raise or getting an extension. And I think those institutions, that have those particular coaches that have had that success, absolutely. They've got to weigh it and, and measure it and balance it. And, I would say protect their investment. And so, it's a balance. And I think, you certainly, are going to do what you can to protect your investment, but do it or try to do it in a responsible manner.
Mack, when it comes to the shifting landscape, do you feel like Baylor still is able to kind of know who it is and who it will be moving forward, or is that something that you guys are still trying to figure out how what Baylor wants to be fits into what it is going to be in the future?
Yeah, I think, Craig, I think that it's a year by year, maybe it's even a day by day conversation now, but I do think it's a year by year. I think this thing is evolving so quickly. And, earlier I talked about, being a developmental program. Well, maybe a portion, a smaller portion of your roster can be, as we all know, right, there's very little patience, for having a down year, and off year. And so you've got to be thinking, about present talent, quality of roster in the moment. And so, how you navigate that is certainly different. We've talked about, our name, image, and likeness. And, again, I don't think we're in the lower half. I don't think we're in the probably, upper 2 or 3, but that's an area that we're going to have to grow. And it's an area we've grown in, and it's an area that we're going to have to continue to grow. That has consequences, for an institution like Baylor, where, we're an institution that's the size of, 14,500, students when you think about undergraduate population. So we don't have the masses and masses of alums. And so how can we garner more name, image, and likeness opportunities, or not Baylor, but how can GXG do that, right? And go out to our donors, and how do we do that without impacting what we're asking them to do for us, whether it's Bear Foundation scholarships, facilities, all of that. And there's some give and take and consequences to it. So it's a challenge. But it's one that, I think that, we're in the midst of. And, I've said it before that, really feel like, the industry and where it's headed, that, we're going to take some body blows. This is a 10-round heavyweight fight. And, early on, we're going to take some body blows. And I think we're right in the middle of that. But I also think we'll keep standing, and, we'll end up winning this thing in the later rounds. And, I'm really proud of our coaches. I'm really proud of our staff, for being resilient, for being resourceful and strategic. And, we'll navigate this thing, and we'll continue to be nationally relevant. And I don't want to say that, flippant, because, that's not just going to happen. That is a lot of hard work in terms of, what we are facing today in this industry.
The networks, the TV networks that make the decisions on the games that they want, and if you're nationally ranked or you're a team that's in the mix for a conference or even the college football playoff, they're going to want teams in the prime time, or even their big game at 11 on Fox or whatever it is on the other stations as well. But this is now going to be, I believe, 5 consecutive weeks of ESPN Plus, and that's just the way things are. How frustrating is it when you're trying to build up and also maintain your image or your branding at Baylor?
Yeah, I think it, I think it is certainly frustrating. But I also think that, hey, it's what goes along with when you're having a season that you're struggling. And as you mentioned, it's about matchups. And so, for us to be, one of the preferred games being on a linear broadcast. We've got to win more games, and over the course of particularly the last 2 to 3 years, we've been a prominent brand on the linear broadcasts, and because we struggled this year, we haven't. So we gotta get better. We gotta win more games.
Mac, on the subject of ESPN Plus, I was looking through emails sent about the recent Board of Regents meeting and some of the actions taken, and it mentioned that as required by the Big 12, Regents approved funding to improve broadcast capabilities, allocating $24.25 million for construction of a broadcast production center in McClain, and also upgrade some of the video technology, and that some of that will be supported by a capital investment from PlayFi, which is your multimedia rights holder. Can you just discuss that, what that means, I guess the requirement by the Big 12 as far as the TV production side of things go?
No, I'll try to do it, because it's complicated, but with the new TV contract, right, that starts July 1, 2025, we need to have the ability to produce, linear and digital broadcast simultaneously. We don't have that capability right now.
Okay.
We also have, an antiquated control room and production rooms to run the video boards, and so. What we're constructing, what we're building would be 2 control rooms, and so we'd have the ability to broadcast simultaneously. Again, both linear and digital. We'll have one central location now to run the video boards. At the pavilion, at the Fox Pavilion, at the Farrell Center, at McClain Stadium. At certainly baseball and softball, and so that will be a huge win. Obviously, brand new state-of-the-art equipment. The current equipment is antiquated, and it also provides us an ability to generate some revenues. ESPN will pay us a flat fee for production of Olympic sport games, whether again. That could be on a linear platform or a digital platform, and also the same for football, men's and women's basketball. So it is a project that we certainly need and grateful to the Board of Regents for their support. And then McClain Stadium opened up in 2014, and the lifespan of that video technology, the main video board, the ribbon boards, all of that has exceeded its lifespan. Usually that's 7 to 8 years, and so you're starting to see it compromised right now, and so just replacing out all of that, and then working with, as you mentioned, Craig, our multimedia rights partner PlayFi to add some additional technology. We'll add a north video board in McClain. We'll put a video board on the back end of the main video board, the back side, and then do some video technology over the home team entrance tunnel into the stadium, and all of those 3 pieces of new technology will help us generate additional revenue as well.
Man, things move fast, like 9 years, and you're like,
that's
old. It's dusty. Like,
not even a decade old.
Not like your stadium was built in 1950, and you're getting around to it just in 2014. Okay, Matt, can you help us sift through the Big 12 tiebreaker situation?
I bet you haven't even really had anybody maybe sit down and say that's on the agenda tomorrow for the Big 12 ADs, have you?
So, we had the Big 12 AD call today, and we did not discuss it. And tomorrow we won't. But it is absolutely complicated, and something that, we, the ADs, will come together and approve just with a couple small tweaks.
Last thing, if you don't mind, there was an announcement tomorrow or yesterday about TCU Baylor, and a lot of people have called it the Rivalry. It's now the Bluebonnet Trophy or Bowl. I mean, this is a very intense rivalry, as you know, and I've seen kind of a lot of harsh reactions to what it's being called, and some like it. Of course, at this time, people are going to like it or not. What was the overall background on doing that?
Yeah, so I'm grateful to both student government associations, both TCU and Baylor, and they really came together and ran with it. And for us here at Baylor, Nick and Lily were terrific, and we didn't have a place, in terms of the naming of it. And again, they really wanted to, kind of rebrand, refresh this new moniker, if you will, so to speak. And it's, as you mentioned, it's a really, really important game. Jeremiah Donati and I were part of that small working group, 4 or 5 of us that worked on the schedule. And as you know, is only one of 4 protected games that will be played every year. And so the value of the rivalry, I think, is really important. It's really important to the Big 12. There's always some special nuances to it, when you think about, who we are, both private, schools, smaller schools, both have had great success. When I talked about family, we have, and 2 family members facing off versus one another. We've got our nose tackle, Cooper Lambs, who's facing off against, his brother, who's TCU senior center, John. And so, you have, that component to it. And so, it's a great rivalry, and, 119 times, and, the most played in the state of Texas. And, just appreciate the student governments from each institution taking it and running with it.
Thank you, Mack. Appreciate your time. Mack Rhoades, Baylor Director of Athletics, with us. Most Tuesdays are about 4:15, 4:20, and there are times, of course, with business, a conflict, that he is not available to be a part of the show.
Yeah, not a dull week, right? With everything that we just talked about with him. And yeah, the Bluebonnet battle, that has been a controversial naming here in the last 24 hours. And I get why. I totally get it. But, yeah, I mean, he got peppered with some questions there, and there's a lot to sort through. I mean, he obviously can't give us an answer on the future of the head coaching position for football right now, and I totally get that. And it is all about just them focusing on these last couple of weeks, right? I mean, that's all you can do at this point, and the rest will take care of itself. And I think in some ways, you can either help matters or you can, fast forward this. Like, go get beat by TCU the way you got beat by K-State, right? And that'll fast forward some things. That's what you can't afford to do if you're Dave Aranda and company, but you also can't sit there and put this immense amount of pressure on yourself. So, yeah, they just have to go play football. That's all they can do, and the rest will be sorted out by those that make those decisions. But, wasn't expecting much more than that from him. But, yeah, a lot of good stuff in there, a lot of interesting stuff on a bevy of topics.
I said this to somebody who asked me to ask about the Bluebonnet. What's it called? The trophy or battle?
Bluebonnet battle.
And there used to be a hell of a bowl game in Houston. It was the Bluebonnet Bowl. It was really well done at the Astrodome. It was a damn good game. Good back when there was like only 10 bowl games. Now there's 350. But I say this in a way it's a joke. But right now, Baylor University or Dr. Livingstone, Mack Rhoades, Dave Aranda could cure something that's incurable, and it would how come you didn't do it earlier? It's a lot of heat right now on everything, and and understandably so. But not everybody likes everything, and right now I think just everybody has their pitchforks out. They're mad at the world.
I do think there is some element of that. I do think there is this weird contingent that no matter what, Linda Livingstone can't do anything right. I think it's pretty much because she's a woman most of the time, and that's not all the time. But I do think there's like just some pocket of people that like it's no matter what it's like it's the only thing that explains it because why? Because like I mean some of the accomplishments they've had as a university, it's just like why else would you be this adamant against this person? I mean, what could it possibly be? And so I do think there's just like this weird backlash when it comes to her. But that goes across the board, like you said. But having said that as well, I do think Bluebonnet Battle is so low effort and lame that you couldn't come up with anything else. And I hate being this guy because there are people who very well could be watching this show that were a part of it, and it was a big deal for them to be a part of it. But, you know, it was just sort of out of nowhere. The Rivalry has been around and has been a name for forever. I understand there's this part of it that, like, TCU didn't want to be affiliated with, you know, the religious aspect of it. It's like, well, take the Christian name out of your dadgum university then. Let's start there. You know, if you're that opposed to it, if that's in fact the case. But besides that, I mean, even Dave Aranda, in the middle of like these pressure-filled questions, is sitting there cracking on the Bluebonnet Battle name of like, yeah, I've been on, just like you guys, driving up and down 35 and see the Bluebonnets, and interesting name for a football game, though. You know, like he's even sitting there not even able to. Nikki Collin. Well, that's not the toughest name in the world. Like everybody's panning it, and it's like
Mo Porter, former Baylor player. He goes, "Listen, we hate them at blank at TCU."
Yeah, but we're Bluebonnets. Yeah. I mean, and just Bluebonnet Battle. It's like you would think it'd be like Battle of the Bluebonnets, but just Bluebonnet Battle. It's just the most generic Texas rivalry name you could possibly have. Like it couldn't have taken more than 2 seconds.
No, it does sound like you hired, you know, the bland marketing firm, and they got down to it, and they just put some things in the bowl. Like, okay, it's either got to be a showdown or a battle or a rivalry,
a clash.
So,
but it can't be a shootout.
Can't be a shootout. But so like we've got these different things, and then they just put them in AI and like circle them around, and then Battle of the Bluebonnet Battle came out, and they're like, done. That was a good 15 minutes.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of alliteration, but even that like doesn't it just. Bluebonnet Battle. There's nothing. It doesn't roll. It doesn't. Yeah, I don't jive with it.
I'm going to tell you this: that I spoke with Lily Davis, who's a part of the Baylor student government. She's the one that was a part of this deal. I spoke with her earlier today. She hears it. She hears it, but they went forward and did what they could do. We don't know exactly the decision or the task they were told, or if this was something to hold hands or whatever. But I loved her passion for what they wanted to do, whether people liked it or not. She gets it. She heard it. And I'll probably at some point this week record a few minutes with her about it and kind of how it went about.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing personal and good for her. But, you know, I also think it's telling when everybody's like very vague about how the idea came about and where it actually came from, and no one's owning it, and they're shoving it to the other school saying it was their idea. And so it's just been a very weird, funny reaction to this thing over the last 24 hours. And I'm not one of those that's been like ranting for, you know, hours about this on Twitter, you know, because I've seen like all sorts of tweets about it. But I do think that it's a little underwhelming. For sure, it's a bit underwhelming.
Okay, even if you don't want like the connotation, like Rivalry is just a cool name,
It's a better
man.
name.
It's a cool name. You know, it would be like
it has a little pizzazz to it.
Yes,
it's unique.
It's got showmanship to it, and you know if you were putting on a magic show and you're like, all right, what's your magician name? You know, the Great Zondo is something that has like pizzazz to it, and you'd be like, nah, just call me Dennis.
Mike the Magician.
By the way,
that's what it is. You're Mike the Magician.
I just typed in Rivalry, and the first thing that showed up was Wikipedia Baylor TCU football rivalry.
Yeah, it just that part of it I didn't understand. I mean, the only thing that's helped explain that is that apparently, just based on like I don't even know where it came from. I just saw it a couple times. Apparently, that was TCU's side of things, was they didn't want that. I don't know that to be sure, but that's the assumption, I guess. And so, I mean, I don't even think that people were looking at that going like, wow, that's really a Christian name and thinking religion, but like that just I don't know. I think they messed up a good thing that was unique unto its own. It was their thing. It wasn't a clash, a classic, a showdown. It was the Rivalry. It's you know what it is, and they just tossed that aside for Mike the Magician.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there,
not the end of the world. But
I will say this, and I know not everybody agrees with Mack or thinks that he's giving you what you want to hear or whatever. And again, like I said, but thanks for his time. We appreciate that because there's a lot in there. There's the way to ask the question about the football program, and Dave Aranda's future. He handled that. He may not give you exactly the answers you want, but what do you expect him to do? Come on and all of a sudden say, hey, by the way, the next time I'm on your show, we'll be talking about a new head coach. It's not going to be that way.
Also, I think when you need to, sometimes listen back to some of those questions, and he didn't make any declarative statements either.
Not.
So
Absolutely. Very vague.
That is when it comes to AD talk, and Mack is very direct with us, and we're very fortunate that he is direct with us. Because you can have it every which way. But there are sometimes you just can't come out and say exactly what's going on because, one, a decision hasn't clearly been made yet. Or if it is, it's not time to announce said decision, whatever that is. But he wasn't Dan Lanning coming out and making a declarative statement. Like there is room for situations to change and the flow of the river to go other places. So, for the people who are going to watch that segment and then, light the torches higher, I would just say there were no declarative statements made in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you were expecting them to be made in this radio interview with 2 games to play, I think that you're probably in need of a check of your expectations.
I also will say this, and this is going to come across maybe harsh towards the roster. Texas A&M is in a situation where they have a roster full of top 5, 10, 2 recruiting classes on that roster. If you go over the last 4 or 5 years, they need to make a decision to get a coach in there that can ensure that roster that will get rated like crazy if they don't make the right hire is intact. Baylor doesn't necessarily have to make that same decision based on that same thing. Not that they don't have to protect the roster, but if there's a little bit of rating here that's kind of be expected, but they're not, an intact roster away from competing for a conference title right now. Like they're going to probably have to do a large roster reshuffling anyway, so they're not necessarily in that same boat to the same degree that A&M would be.
But when you don't have a lot of it or that, you surely don't want to lose what you have in the first place.
That's all being true. But again,
if
you're like, this team has been so bad that if 25 guys went in the portal, look, the new coach might shove 25 guys in the portal anyway.
Yeah. No.
So
I think the problem with that, though, is that the fact that of those 25 guys, like 15 of them might be freshmen and sophomores.
Yeah,
that's what you're supposed to build around. Yeah. And if you don't have those guys now, like, you have to start all the way back over again, or you have to go sign a Colorado class in the portal,
with a Matt Rule first year.
I wanted,
survive class.
I wanted to ask him this, but I know he couldn't answer it because of the way they would probably be a little bit revealing. But I wanted to sort of ask him, would this be a different conversation if the transfer portal didn't exist?
Yeah, well, you could ask him that next week.
Because I feel like if you knew, Caden Jenkins will be here, and this guy will be here, and that guy will be here, then you can say, you know what? I see in 2 years, if they just get a couple O linemen and a guy to follow Shapen with Sawyer Robertson or whatever, then you could say, yeah, okay, I can see how they fill those holes. But that whole unknown of, and Aranda touched on this yesterday about he just basically said, I know guys are probably talking to other schools and they're getting recruited.
That for the last few weeks.
Yeah, he's just totally open about it. And so, without knowing who's actually going to be on the team because of the portal, it's that much harder, I think.
When we come back, Craig Smoak off the radar. We appreciate everybody, your opinions, your time with us. There's a lot of times what's going on in the chat room has nothing to do with what we are discussing or the guest or segments we have, and that's fine too. We appreciate you and our great sponsors, and this is 365 Sports.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports, usually around 4:45 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it is a Tuesday, a little bit later because we were having the conversation with Mack Rhoades and then talking about it afterwards. But I got a little grab bag of stuff here. Do want to start off by making mention of the fact that there is that hearing going on right now with Washington and the rest of the Pac-12, soon-to-be ex-Pac-12 schools, the 10 of those schools, but Washington's sort of at the head of it since that's where the lawsuit is. And then, obviously, the other side being Washington State and Oregon State, arguing over, control and what assets the current Pac-12 should have and how that should be separated moving forward. And basically at the basis of this is how much do Oregon State and Washington State control? And once you kind of know that, you can kind of know what they might end up trying to do as far as pivoting and moving towards the future. But having that all uncertain right now is not allowing them to schedule for games next year, even though they've got a few that they kind of say like, oh, we had our non-cons and we could play each other and maybe there's this and that, but a lot in limbo. The college football playoff and how all that's going to work moving forward as far as the Pac-12, how is that viewed in terms of the conferences? All of that is mysterious at the moment because there is this little bit of business unsettled. So nothing to report from it because they're still arguing and they're going back and forth. I guess outside of the fact that everybody apparently following along and watching this live court hearing are reporting back that the Pac-12's argument really has no legs to stand on. And they did not come well equipped to argue. But what's also known from this is that regardless of what happens today, there is likely to be an appeal. So this could go on a bit longer, but we are waiting on something to be handed down from the judge, hopefully here before we end, I would imagine so, with another hour to go. But yeah, that is ongoing right now, the arguments for control of the Pac-12's assets in a courtroom right now in Washington. So we'll update you on that as best we can today, and then certainly we'll have something to talk about, you would think, tomorrow, one way or the other. Meanwhile, and y'all have any thoughts on that, just the whole battle? I mean,
I think they should get some money, but I don't think that they'll be able to get everything that they're going to get some of what they want, but they're not. So, yeah. But they're not going to get all of what they want.
$1 quadrillion.
Yeah, they're not going to get the whole, like, we have everything, we've won. Like, there's going to be some give and take there. Now, most of this is really, like, I don't think Oregon State and Washington State are under the delusion that, like, they're going to win this lawsuit and then one of the remaining conferences is going to call them and be like, now you have.
Who's Kirk Schultz?
The president of.
Yeah.
He was under the illusion the Pac-12 was going to be just fine for a long, long time.
No, I mean, I think now that reality's kind of hit them in the face.
And there's
like, I don't
nothing
think
wrong
that
with being positive and thinking that way, but
I do think that they're going to wind up with a nice little check here that they can use in the future, and then they can move on. But it's not going to be. It might help them weather the storm of being in a conference like the Mountain West, whose television contract is going to be way lower than they're used to. So they might be able to navigate that for a couple of years and put together a schedule, like whatever they need to do. But ultimately, like, they need to get this done so they can just go ahead and join a conference and get a schedule, because they don't, like, you gotta do a lot of things over a 6-month period to get ready for a football season alone, much less basketball and everything else you're losing. So
yeah, and I saw Bob Thompson going back and forth, had some comments on it, and I guess the one thing that this was the part that was puzzling to me as well, is at least initially when a lot of the scuttlebutt was like, well, control of the network, and it's like, well, what's the network even going to be? I mean, that was something that I don't feel like was as maybe prized. I don't know, maybe sell off the equipment and you get money for that, but as far as what that was, that's not something that networks or cable companies are forced to air. So there's no like automatic, like you get that and there's a lot to sort through with the network, with the equipment, with the money that's owed, the tournament, payouts and all that kind of deal. And there are hundreds of millions of dollars on the line. So that is ongoing right now. And again, we'll get that to you as soon as there is something finalized there, hopefully before the end of the day today. Meanwhile, Week 11 college football ratings came out. I usually just kind of take a look at the top 5 here. But the number one most watched game, not a big shocker here, 9.16 million viewers for Michigan and Penn State.
You wonder if Connor Stallions was a part of
that. Yeah, well, nearly everybody else was apparently here. But that noon window, Michigan and Penn State on Fox, 9.16 million viewers. That is that's the first, the latest college football game, the sixth largest, or the latest to top 9 million, but the sixth largest audience of the season. So, a big number there, and a huge drop-off to number 2, but also a Fox broadcast, Utah and Washington, which was a 3:30 kickoff, 5.17 million people. So that back-to-back for Fox, man, that's nearly 15 million people watching your back-to-back football games. Not a bad deal there between Michigan, Penn State, and Utah, Washington.
Yeah, that's a nice little swing right there. And I mean, the number was always going to be huge for Michigan and Penn State, but I do think there's probably a little bit of hate watching in there.
To that? Yeah.
A little bit of like, oh, how are they going to do? This is the first time it was going to be interesting to watch Michigan at all. Like they're challenged. Not that if you're not a fan or you want to watch just a good team play, because they are a really good team, but a Michigan game can get boring in a hurry.
Yes.
Because it's 31-0 at halftime. You're like, well, they don't even have to throw a pass anymore. Like they really don't have to hand off. They could just take snaps and fall forward for the rest of the time. They're going to win this game. So this one was at least until the middle of the third quarter.
Yeah.
At least where Penn State, if they could have, mustered a big couple of plays, been right back in the game. But after the about the 8-minute mark in the third quarter, you thought, I think Michigan's got this.
Well, they definitely think they had some hate watching going on. So, 9.16 there, 5.17, the second most watched, Utah, Washington. That was back-to-back on Fox. And then ESPN had Ole Miss and Georgia, 4.83 million for that one. Miami FSU, 4.14 million over on ABC. And then Tennessee, Missouri, the fifth most watched game, 3.62 million over on CBS. Had 357 for Michigan State, Ohio State, 3 million for USC and Oregon. over on Fox. So again, another big weekend for Fox, but just spread out. And the Big Ten, you can obviously see why they got the big TV contract with the big brands and all that, but the big audiences too. Especially that Michigan-Penn State game. That's a monster number, nearly scratching 10 million. Top game in the Big 12. And this is something, man, when you talk about the Big 12 and their TV ratings and whatnot moving forward, when you subtract Texas and Oklahoma, you wonder where a lot of the numbers are going to come from. But Texas and TCU, the top watched game in the Big 12, 2.82 million people tuned in for that one. I think every Texas game, like you started.
And that was a night game, right?
Yeah, it was 7:30.
Good, yeah.
282 for that one. So not a giant number by any means. Still top 10-ish. But then Bama, Kentucky at 276. But then West Virginia, Oklahoma, 239 million. So you have to go to Oklahoma State and UCF, which would be like top 15-ish for the top new Big 12 number. And that was a little over 1 million, 1.21 million. Iowa State, BYU had like 943K. Tech and Kansas had 780K. So that is something to be mindful of when you look at the TV ratings moving forward. It's also always interesting to see at the bottom of like certain games broadcast on ESPNU in particular, like Rice UTSA, 22,000 people. 22,000 people tuned into that one, so just a huge difference, and you see in the brands right there. But yeah, a little look at the ratings, and I wonder who the Big 12, the ones with the lead are going to be as far as the TV ratings go moving forward.
First of all, who was playing against Texas and TCU? Because that seemed like a little bit
Michigan
of a
State, Ohio State.
Well, there you go.
Yes,
Ohio State
and Virginia, Louisville.
Yeah, okay.
So that was a pretty jam-packed window.
I think.
And West Virginia OU, technically. It started a half hour earlier, but that was also ongoing.
I think that I speak for all of us in the ACC that are trying to leave in that Florida State and Miami get better so that number can go up.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, 4.4 is good. Like that game back in that, like if you took the 90s games of that and put it now, that game would be getting 12 million people. It was that like important of a game, and now it's just a third of probably what it should be.
Yeah, but I mean, it's fair as he points out, the other games that are ongoing and how that matters. So that Florida State Miami game, it gets over 4 million, which that's healthy. I mean, I think, baseline for like Texas and Oklahoma is like a little over 2.
Yeah.
You'd say that's kind of the start. Michigan as well. Michigan's probably like 3, actually.
I would think, Texas OU close to 2.5, 3 baseline.
Baseline,
and they're going to get into the 6 to 8 depending on who they're playing. And Michigan probably more like 3 to 4.
And that's why it will be fascinating to see the SEC ratings next year when you have like Texas LSU as just a week 4 game or week 5 game, or Oklahoma Georgia week 9 or whatever it may be. That's going to be some pretty massive numbers. But yeah, Florida State Miami, that was going up, Paul, against Utah Washington.
Yeah.
Tennessee, Missouri was also on at that time. Oklahoma State, UCF, that had over 1 million, and so on and so forth. But yeah, Michigan, Penn State, the top getter by nearly double, 9.16 million there. All right, a couple of other notes. Monday Night Football last night. Did either one of you guys watch that game as the
I got to tell you,
Buffalo Bills continue to ride the struggle bus?
They're a mess. It's almost as if Josh Allen feels like every play has to be a 40-yard or a touchdown, either by running the ball or passing the ball. He's thrown a lot of picks lately. They are a mess, and they had a horrible pass interference call. It was, and that killed them.
Horrible as in they shouldn't have done it. It was a legit call. Yeah,
and then all of a sudden, who are they playing? Denver, who's won like 3 in a row somehow. Russell Wilson with his best game of the year. They missed the field goal, but there's too many men on the field, and they get to kick it again.
Sean McDermott's got some problems there. I saw a good portion of it when I was out. Went to Shorty's new location last night in Hewitt, by the way. It's fantastic. And was watching some of it there. But yeah, like the Bills, for a team that had Super Bowl expectations and dreams, like that's not over. Obviously, like they can always get better, but they've got to change some things. I suspect I know what story you're about to report, though, Craig.
Yes, and that is that after another struggle by the Buffalo offense and the fact that they're now 5-5 and really just did not look good offensively yesterday. And as my sister, who has Josh Allen as the fantasy quarterback, can probably attest, she was so excited about him. He's done like little to nothing compared to what she thought when she drafted him. And Buffalo really did find, like you mentioned, the too many men on the field during the field goal miss and all that, just crazy.
12 players.
They have fired offensive coordinator and former Miami quarterback great Ken Dorsey. He is out the door in Buffalo as their offensive coordinator. So that move made today. And the interim, Joe Brady, That a name that you guys remember hearing all that often?
Yeah, Garrett doesn't miss Joe Brady.
You talk about going from one of the hottest names in college football to a hot name in the NFL, and then oh yeah, I forgot about Joe Brady. So he's in Buffalo now, and he is now the interim offensive coordinator for the Bills.
I think part of it was Joe Brady was a cool part of that story, but it was the other Joe that was
for sure.
that was really
You mean Burrow?
Yeah, he did such a good job with Joe Burrow. Yeah, he did, but also Joe Burrow is Joe Burrow. I mean, he's turned into something quite amazing. I think it's probably the right thing. Ken Dorsey, and I say this with the most respect in the world, the worst player on the best college football team ever, and he was the Heisman Trophy candidate off of it. Sure. And he was still a really good college quarterback. There's no denying that. But again, that team was so good. He could real throw underhand. But and I'm sure he'll get another. I don't know if it's all Ken Dorsey, because last year Ken Dorsey was all the rage, and then part of it is sometimes you do have to keep ahead of everybody else, because when you're innovative, that's great. But if the other coaches, all it takes is one coach to have the film to, make you not innovative anymore. And then everybody else copies it. So they can't do this. They can't do this. They can't do this. We're going to make sure we exploit. They've got a weakness here, and they exploit it. And if you don't coach around those things or adapt to them, then you wind up 5-5 like the Bills are right now. I think that's where Ken Dorsey is. He was great last year, and then everybody kind of caught up to him, and they have Super Bowl aspirations, and they can't stay in neutral like they have been in offense, which is supposed to be the strength of their team.
Yeah, next will be the head coach, right? Yeah. I mean, if they continue to struggle. So, yeah, you had to do something. So, yeah, Joe Brady, that's a name familiar to a lot of college football fans. He is now the interim offensive coordinator there for the Buffalo Bills, so he'll be in charge of Josh Allen and all that comes with that. Meanwhile, just one or two more notes here. Leighton Vander Esch of the Dallas Cowboys, he is done for the season thanks to a neck injury. But the biggest part, I guess, of the story came from GM owner Jerry Jones, who was making his weekly radio appearance up in Dallas with the Fan, and said that not only is his season over, but that he's an integral part of the defense and they wish him well, but that because of the nature of the injury, he is wondering now about the long term and beyond what it means just for the next game or the next, when am I going to come back? That now this all has everything to do with what is in Vander Esch's best interest. And basically Jerry's saying that he's not so sure that his career's not over now at this point. So very unfortunate news when you start talking about, severe neck injuries and the fact that those could be career enders. But Jerry Jones throwing it out there on his radio show. And at this point, that guy's been through so much, that would not come as a surprise.
No, it wouldn't. And Leighton Vander Esch, I've got to interview him many times early in his career. I think, Smokey, you and I talked to him at a camp one time. Absolutely an awesome guy to have in your team. A guy really, they're going to miss Leighton Vander Esch. He had some ups and downs at a certain point in his career, but he's been very consistent for them. And last year played really well, was playing early on in this year before he got hurt. And I hate that. I hate that for him. I think Leighton Vander Esch is going to wind up being one heck of a football coach one day, if he wants to do that or whatever he wants to do. But if he wanted to go the coaching route, he seems to kind of have that knack about him. So yeah, that's a real bummer. And you don't just replace a tackling machine like that on your roster. The Cowboys signed Rashaan Evans a few weeks ago. He made his first start last week. They've got Damone Clark out there. They lost the guy from Texas whose name escapes me. Overshown in the preseason, who they really liked, and hopefully he can bounce back. But yeah, that's going to be
they've been playing
tricky.
without him.
Yeah.
They've been playing without him. I hate it he's a good dude, and early on he had that really good first year, and then everyone thought he was kind of a second year
bust,
a bust. But he's really inside, man. He's done a really nice job for them. He really has, and I hate it for him. He hate any time a person's career. But the next time he hurts his neck, you never know. It might be more than worrying about walking than playing football.
Yeah, so he got hurt earlier in October, and when they were playing the 49ers, and was eligible to start getting off injured reserve, but then he was still having lingering symptoms, so they shut him down. And now there's talk about this could be it. He's only 27 years old. So he's got a lot of a future ahead of him. But final note here, this was from a couple of days ago, but TCU got a little social media boost. I don't know if you saw, but Haley Cavender of the Cavender twins. I'm not big on TikTok and all of that, but they are very popular. That duo, they were at Miami last year, then announced that I guess they were done playing basketball, but Haley Cavender I guess, had second thoughts and felt that weren't going to get the most out of the competitive part of her and felt like the basketball side wasn't quite over for her. So they're not a package deal anymore, but Haley Cavender did announce that she is going to use her 5th year and final year of eligibility and play at TCU. And hashtag committed the last rodeo and had a picture of her in the TCU uniform. So I say that because Paul's obviously the women's basketball expert, but obviously as well, that's just a big social media get for TCU that you'll, like Olivia Dunn or any other number of social media stars, TCU here in the Big 12 getting one of the more popular college athletics personalities out there. So there you go with that. There's a few things off the radar.
All right, there's a lot off the radar. We appreciate that. John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist around the corner. I want to make sure that I've gotten to everything. Here's a couple of media blitz notes from that email that I get every single week. Missouri running back Cody Schrader is the 10th player in FBS history with 200 yards rushing and 100 yards receiving in a game. He's the 3rd player to do it versus an AP-ranked opponent. Devin Neal last year against Oklahoma State for Kansas, and Christian McCaffrey in 2015 against USC. Marvin Harrison recorded his 28th and 29th career touchdown versus Michigan State, 4th most in Ohio State history. Olave, David Boston, and Devin Smith have 30 or more. Let's see. He is also the first player in Ohio State history with multiple seasons of 1,000 receiving yards, which is hard to believe because they've had so many great receivers, but some of them have moved on pretty quickly. And getting 1,000 yards receiving is not easy. So there is that with, and I have one more note, but go ahead.
No, just like I wonder, and I'm sure there's like a spreadsheet that shows it, but you finally get your turn because they're so loaded at wide receiver, and then you have your big year, and then you're like, all right, off to the NFL, and the next guy comes up, you know what I mean? And then he gets his big year, and then he's off to the NFL. So, yeah, and I guess it's kind of in short bursts, but, you would think that would have maybe not been the case before.
Yeah. By the way, and I'm per Bruin Report.
UCLA?
Yeah.
The
24/7 UCLA site, they are reporting that Chip Kelly is likely going to be fired after the USC game, which if they're going to, I guess they're just trying to get through the week since it's already Tuesday, but he is 33-33 in 6 years, or whatever it is 6 years as the head coach at UCLA. And,
they really started off hot this year as far as a name.
And then, look, last year, like they had a really good year, and they were, there was a lot of buzz about him. But all it takes is a year because it looked like he'd finally maybe gone on the upswing.
Yep.
I think Chip is a little bit cantankerous. So when you have I think that when you run into the hard times and you've got a nice guy coach, like sometimes you can be like, all right, well, he's going to figure it out. Like I can deal with him. But when you run into some, like they're, on a downtrend and they're going to the Big Ten and you got to think about all those things. And the guy's kind of like, cantankerous. Maybe you go like, look, all right.
Would you describe me?
A cantankerous?
Or is that not high enough?
No, you can be cantankerous.
All right. Utah, they lost to top 10, 15 team at the time. Oregon State. And the Arizona surging the last month or so has kicked a few people down the road further than they thought. And then, of course, they just lost to Arizona State, who's a very average at best team. The Arizona schools have had kind of a nice little decent run. Arizona State's got a kid named Fight. Played at Tatum High School in East Texas. Got to know the family.
Arizona State's not very good. They're not very good. They got a long way to go there.
And that was a game at UCLA too.
Yeah. I mean they've like fought, but they're not very good right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like they're scrappy, but they're not able to win games.
They're not a gimme.
The biggest news that happened there was that they
Fired their AD.
Yeah,
or that he retired
or whatever he did. So
it's another thing about UCLA. Their biggest win has been against Washington State, who at the time was 13th in the country, and they're dead last with Colorado in the Pac-12.
Wazoo's completely fallen off a cliff, which I hate that because Cam Ward's such a fun player. But yeah, they went from like, hey, them and Oregon State are going to be disruptive, and now it's like they
may not make a bowl.
They fell off to the wayside. But Arizona State's been dealt some blows, and they're still very much trying to build that thing up. But they've had some moments of like a little peak and like, okay, that looks good. But Arizona's been a huge surprise. I mean, they're talking now about like we got to redo Jed Fish's contract in light of the coaching cares. They're like they got to start working on his contract now. So that's how quickly that thing has now turned for the better, and that bodes really well for them moving into the Big 12 next year. We'll see as far as the Sun Devils go.
Great, another really good team entering the.
But I mean, Utah, we know what that is. Colorado, I mean, if anything, it's going to be interesting. And then Arizona is looking like they'll be pretty well set up, and then Arizona State, we'll see what they can do in the offseason.
Dillingham, yeah.
But yeah, that's actually looking better than when all that was going on. You're like, well, Colorado stinks. Deion's not going to do anything. Arizona schools suck, and so on. Utah's the only good one. It's like, well, not necessarily based on the way it's tracking right now.
Yeah. By the way, go ahead.
I want to ask you guys your opinion on this. Gary and I talked about this earlier. It was in regard to Urban Meyer, but I think it kind of also applies to Chip Kelly. I think the era of the dictator coaches is winding to an end. And that's why, like, okay, look, if A&M hires Urban Meyer, he can probably win there pretty quick, but he's going to be gone in 3 or 4 years anyway because he's Larry Brown, but not as friendly. But he rules with
he is at a bar.
He rules with an iron fist, right? And I think that there's a way that, like, Nick Saban, for all you want to say about him, is not a dictator, right? He's stern, but he's benevolent.
Well, listen to Phil Bennett talk about him.
Yeah, he knows how to move everything around.
He has his finger on everything with
everything that's changing. I think the Chip Kellys and Urban Meyers of the world are going to have a harder time because things are different, because you have to be, more flexible to different things now, because before the power was completely in the coach's hands. You have to sit out a year if you transfer. You have to, you can't get any money. You can't do these things.
Or you could bench a player, and now Saban can, but if you do it now, they're probably going to transfer.
But now, because of the freedom that the players have, you cannot treat them like a dictator anymore. Yep. Like you have to be flexible in the way you are. And I think inflexibility is what's going to get a lot of, like, Jimbo Fisher not inflexible with his players. I think his players actually do like him, but he was stubborn, and stubbornness got him fired.
By the way, I just wanted to make a note about Arizona. If 5 consecutive games they played teams ranked in the top 20. 5 times. Washington, USC, they lost, and those were close games. And then Washington State, Oregon State, and UCLA. 5 consecutive games against ranked teams, and they are now on a 4-game winning streak.
Yeah, I mean, they're really turning into something. So, again, I think with them in Utah, and then Colorado's obviously very interesting. We'll see what Arizona State does this offseason. But, yeah, that's shaping up to be a much better entrance competitively for those 4 than maybe originally thought when you – sort of expected it would only be Utah that would come in and really tussle from the get-go, or be a really good team from the outset. That there should be maybe 3 of those 4 will be pretty solid heading in, because that Colorado's going to revamp and regroup and hit that portal, and everybody else will too, of course. But that's going to be really interesting. And I just think the UCLA thing is you just seen enough at this point in time, right? Like, he's been around long enough, and it's just not going the direction that you expect at this point. Now, are you going to go find somebody else that's going to be almost a guaranteed like 8-4 every year? I don't know about that. I mean, and now moving into the Big Ten, maybe that has something to do with it as well, as that Chip's been around a good long while at this point, and it's kind of been the sort of same thing. It did, granted, start turn for the better here over the last 3 years or so, but you are sitting at 6-4, or no, at 3-4, just 6-4 right now, 3-4 in the Pac-12, and that's not going to cut it. Obviously, the Pac-12 to go out with you're under 500 with 2 weeks to go. That's not why you hired Chip Kelly. So that's something that started to go south compared to recent years, and I could see where that was sort of like, okay, we better, if we're going to do something, it's probably time to do something.
How many of these firings? Because A&M was first, right? How many of? Okay, thank you A&M for clearing the air. Now let's go. How many of these are in reaction to Texas A&M? Not because of coaches that might go there or what. But now the arms race is on.
It feels
and there's going to be more.
Yeah, it does feel like to me. You ever finish a test or a quiz in school, but you don't want to be the first one to turn it in because you don't want the teacher to give you that look of like, are you sure? Are you sure? So you sit there knowing that you're not going to change anything, pretend like you're doing something, and then wait for somebody else to go put their quiz on the thing, and then you count to 10 and go up there and do it yourself because you think you're fooling everybody. I think this is kind of how it is. Like, is this the time to do it? Can we... Because part of it is also like maybe we can navigate it towards the end a little bit better because there's not going to be any big jobs open. But as soon as the first big one comes open, then you've got to really react.
Yeah, I mean now there's Michigan State, Northwestern that were kind of already assumed to be open jobs earlier in the season, and then here in just the last week now you've had UCLA looks like they'll be joining the fray, and that's I think you. I don't know. I think the quicker you start, maybe you feel like you get a little bit of a head start on the others. But, I don't know how much others, impacted the decision to fire Chip Kelly. I think that might have been coming anyways. But it sort of forces the timeline.
It doesn't have
the Big Ten.
Yeah. You finishing your test and me finishing my test doesn't have any the only thing I'm afraid of is I don't want to be the first one. Mm-hmm. That's what I I don't want to be the one that's seen did you do this? Well, now it's everybody else is doing it.
By the way, Mike Bean, those coaches were eradicated from college basketball about a decade ago, talking about the ones who handled things with an iron fist. But
you saw the talk about Bobby Knight, where it was very split over the type of guy he was. It was he was a great coach, but he would not fly in this day and age.
Yeah. Well, what's the guy from Syracuse who just resigned? Jim Boeheim?
Yeah.
Jim Calhoun, I'm not sure. No, he was a pretty. I said it in the chat room. I said Calhoun. Jim Boeheim is an example of that.
Yeah.
All right, Paxton, is Baylor next?
I still say no right now, but
it's not. I don't know.
I still say if I had to put money on it right now, and I'm not saying this with any sort of insight other than just reading the tea leaves and all that, I still say. I lean no, but I feel like if you go out and you get beat the way you got beat last weekend by TCU and Fort Worth, I feel like there's only so many things you can kind of stay down. That would be okay. You're going to be at best 3-9. You just lost to another rival in the Big 12, big, score-wise, potentially, if that's what happens. So I feel like the last two results are going to kind of play, especially this weekend. I feel like that plays into this overall. That's just me, though.
I do think this is that it doesn't mean the decision hasn't been made.
Right.
And you wonder also, even though you have to be very careful of this, if in fact it's the decision that a lot of people seem to want, you wonder if the person involved, the relationship involved, even though there's a lot of frustration, if that is also not in play here because of Aranda being loyal by signing the extension, getting a lot of money, having the best year, if that might be delaying this for another week or two.
Loyalty?
No, I think it's a hope.
Aranda's not a dick.
I think it's a hope.
Oh, it's not easy to fire him.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it's also a hope that you can
he still can get it
you
right.
You can find because
all signs say no, but I think that,
look, UCLA firing Chip Kelly, what if Chip Kelly? Look, he's had a run everywhere else. This is a good shot that this is Chip Kelly's last P5 job. He's kind of. Maybe he talks his way into another one, but his time has maybe come. But for Dave Aranda's a young coach. He's got his skin on the wall in a conference title. He's a national championship defensive coordinator. The fear for Mack Rhoades and the Baylor administration is they are going to fire Dave Aranda, and 7 years from now he's going to win a national title somewhere else, and they're going to be like, well, if we had only given him what this school gave him, then we would have won.
I think they've given him just about everything except for maybe the NIL piece, but you're also opening up the new indoor facility this summer.
Yeah, the new props.
And so I do think that I think in the case of a Chip Kelly, there was probably a lot of people at UCLA that already wanted him gone. They were happy to see this day come. I don't think there's really anybody happy to want to see Dave Aranda go. Don't get me wrong, there's that message board element that they still want freaking Art Briles back, so why care what they have to say about anything? But besides that, I do think the majority of people want Dave Aranda to succeed. And I think when you hear Mac talking about this era and where Baylor is in comparison to the big dogs, he is what you need. You need a coach like him. You don't need the guy who's going to get the phone call first thing and then want to go and it doesn't really fit the mold. Like Dave Aranda fits what I think the ideal football coach and man is to lead the program, especially in this new era where they're not just going to be able to money whip recruits. They're going to have that relationship side of it. But does everybody have the patience or the faith like a Mack Rhoades does of, I know you can't see it right now, especially in the midst of this, but like give it another year and that's when it'll all click and then boom, we're off to the races.
But do you also, as that same coach that we've complimented for all the things that he is, do they understand? You would think they would. They're not stupid, but do they understand the talent they need to get to the next point? And bringing in and constructing the roster, which would be one of the questions I ask Aranda next Monday if I get that opportunity after TCU. All right, Brandon Lockridge. Rule number one of the Big 12 tiebreakers, any team leaving the conference loses in a tie.
I like it. I like it. Let's establish that right now.
Jason Milam on Jason Shear talking about Jed Fish. In the middle of a $240 million budget crisis, lots of explaining to do after that fat extension he's going to get. Yikes. Mm-hmm. That's a good point. That's Arizona's issue, and I'll let Jason Shear deal with that. All right, tomorrow we will get in with Iowa State with Chris Williams, and there's another guest, and I don't remember who it is other than our regular on Wednesday. We'll have maybe 2 or 3 others. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. I'm starving. I really am. I'm very hungry. I had a bacon, lettuce, tomato sandwich earlier today and pretty early in the day, but I'm hungry. I do feel like either I'm going to make my own pizza or count on the ones who make pizzas for a living. Marco's Pizza, 5 locations in the Waco area. Bob Mock has been in the pizza business for other companies and then learned everything along the way and now owns 5 of them. Great guy, very much involved in a lot of volunteer work. He's also a triathlete, and man, what a great story, because he used to be pretty heavy set. He's done really well when it comes to that. But he also understands the pizza business. Marco's Pizza, pizza lovers get it. Go online, marcos.com, for various specials, code numbers, code words, etc., for you to order, go pick up, or have delivered. Marco's Pizza, pizza lovers get it.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, is your holiday item superstore. Half spiral hams, 8 to 10 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Pit hams, 12 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Bone-in hams, 18 to 22 pounds for $3.40 per pound. Whole raw turkeys from 12 to 16 pounds for $2.50 a pound. Whole smoked turkeys, that's smoked turkeys at 9 to 12 pounds for $3.75 a pound. And mini pit hams, 6 to 8 pounds for $5.99 a pound. And don't forget, they have full service butcher shop where you can find what you want: pork, poultry, seafood, and beef. And I bring up the beef because big beef tenderloin or a prime rib. Brian Bauer and the Bauer family, full service bakery with fresh baked kolaches every morning and bread and cold beer and wine. Tailgate needs from pellet fuel to charcoal. Waco Custom Marketplace and the holiday items, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with NFL Hall of Fame columnist John McClain. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943. Read John's work at sportsradio610.com.
He's a Hall of Famer, an incredible storyteller, and just knows a lot of good stuff. John McClain, Hall of Famer, joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Craig, and I'm David Smoak. John, is there a chance, and shoot me down, but is there a chance that at the end of the year, based on what he's done, C.J. Stroud, barring just something that happens, is at least involved in some of the MVP talk?
The Associated Press 50-member panel that has to have covered the NFL for at least 10 years. And there's writers, broadcasters, former players, general managers on that. It's for regular season. And I just saw that the last player to win it when his team did not win the division was Adrian Peterson in 2012, which is also the last year non-quarterback won it. Only one rookie in history has ever won MVP, and that was Jim Brown, the greatest player I've ever seen with the Browns in 1957. He has come into the mix. He's 6th right now in Vegas, behind 5 quarterbacks. They'd have to win the division. Right now, the Texans are 1 game behind the Jaguars. They play Arizona at home. Then they host the Jaguars. They beat Jacksonville by 20 in the first game. Then they host Denver. And the only 2 games they have left against teams with winning records, Jacksonville and Cleveland, they're played at Energy Stadium. So I think he'll get some votes, but I don't think he's going to win it.
John, what would you say that the Texans, I mean, like, how does it change their view of just, say, next year's offseason? I know we're not there yet, but knowing that they don't have to figure out quarterback for another year, how do they get more aggressive? Do they change a draft strategy? What do they do because C.J. Stroud has been such a home run?
Well, they don't have to worry about the quarterback for a long time. And and he's under a rookie contract for probably get an extension after his 3rd year, like Deshaun Watson did. Don't think they'll be putting a no-trade clause in there like Watson's agent, David Mulugheta, who also represents Stroud, would ask for. And we thought going into camp, their biggest needs were wide receiver. Now, Nico Collins is their leading receiver, 6'4", 220. Noah Brown from the Cowboys, my goodness, he's got 155, 172 yards the last 2 games. He's been hurt till the last 3. He's running open. He's running over people. You know, they signed him to a 1-year deal. Nick Casario has a lot of players, veterans, that he and D'Amico Ryans wanted, that he signed a 1-year contract. Like Devin Singletary, running back who had 30 carries, 150 yards. Sheldon Rankin, defensive tackle, had 3 sacks Sunday, the first time that's happened since G.J. Watt in 2018. So watching them in the offseason, when they're going to have a lot of cap room, do they want to re-sign guys? How many do they want to keep? How many will they let go? Or do they want to get players from other teams? They still have draft choices coming from Cleveland. But overall, I think the biggest surprise has been the wide receivers and their pass rush. If you look at what San Francisco does, all their number 1 picks are on the defensive line. Texans have 1 former number 1 pick on the defensive line. That's Will Anderson Jr. So I'm guessing they will target the line since they rush 4 most of the time.
John, a lot of interesting things going on in the AFC West right now. You got the Chiefs, who obviously are still the top dogs, but they got a massive game coming up with the Eagles next week. I can't wait to see what the ratings are for that one. But also the Broncos starting to get it together there with Sean Payton, and now the Raiders with Antonio Pierce as the interim, getting a big win over the Jets the other night. What are your thoughts on Antonio Pierce and the Raiders and what he may be able to do for them moving forward?
One of the things that he has done are things that it's mind-boggling that Josh McDaniels didn't do. They have the NFL's leading rusher, Josh Jacobs. And Josh Jacobs, they hadn't been running the ball the last few weeks. He has 91 yards and 128, and they're taking the pressure off rookie quarterback Aiden O'Connell. They're not making mistakes. They're throwing the ball to Devontae Adams in different ways. Those are things you'd think they would have been doing all season, but for some reason, Josh McDaniels did not. Just did a terrible coaching job. Walked away with a lot of money, not Jimbo money, but a lot of money. He's been fired in the second season of 2 jobs. He'll never get another head coaching job. And by the way, his brother, Ben McDaniels, is a behind-the-scenes guy here, coaches wide receivers. He's doing a fabulous job. So all the news about the McDaniel family isn't negative.
John, the Bills, they just look like everything's difficult, like they're uptight. And obviously, a great win for Denver. Sean Payton, they've won 3 straight. But what do you hear is going on with them?
I thought when I heard there was breaking news involving the Bills, they were firing a special teams coach because it's inexcusable having too many men on the field for the biggest play of the game. And Buffalo looks discombobulated on both sides of the ball. Josh Allen's making more mistakes than any quarterback in the league. They seem poorly coached to me. Like in that game, their running backs fumbled the ball, but they had great average yards per carries, so they got away from it. And they just look poorly coached. They fired Ken Dorsey. Everybody thought it was going to be a smooth transition with him going from quarterback coach to coordinator, and it backfired. I cannot wait to see what happens now in the offseason. I don't think McDermott will be fired, but it's weird to look at a graphic of the playoffs, see the Texans in, the Bills out.
John, what do you think will happen with Mike Vrabel?
Not a damn thing. Mike Vrabel's not going anywhere. Amy Adams Strunk loves him. If he got fired in the morning, he'd have a job by lunch. If he's fired at lunch, he'd have a job by sundown, even with sundown being a lot earlier. And Vrabel is viewed around the league as a great coach. Now, they're going to have to make changes because they've been bad. Will Levis has really struggled after his great debut with 4 touchdowns against Atlanta. But they'll pull a couple of upsets, and one of them might be the Texans. They play the Texans 2 times in 3 weeks in December.
I remember when the Detroit Lions played the then Redskins in an NFC Championship game, and what was that, 91? When that
Were you born then?
I was just a few years old at that point, but I do remember that. And the Redskins obviously won and went on and won the title, and that was the last title that Washington won.
Why do you have to say that,
But
Craig?
John, when's the last time? That's the only time I can remember the Lions being like pretty good. I know there's been moments there, but can you recall the last time there's been this much buzz as has been built up with Dan Campbell right now in Detroit?
The last time the Lions were as good as they are right now was when they won 2 championships with Buddy Parker as the head coach, who's going into the Hall of Fame in the class of 2024. He dominated Paul Brown. It's weird thinking of Lions 2 championships. When I was 5 and 6 years old, and that's it. I mean, 1 playoff victory since the 50s. Dan Campbell, there's a lot of people saying A&M should give him a Jimbo-type contract to come home to College Station and back to Texas. What he should do is use him to get a monster contract. No way the Ford family is going to let him get out of there unless his heart was in College Station. So we're going to hear that a lot with candidates who are going to say, no, I'm not interested in telling their agent, see how much you can get use A&M, see how much you can get me on a new deal. And Dan Campbell, wouldn't he make a great addition to A&M being a head coach? But everybody likes the guy. How can you not like the Lions right now? They're fun to watch. They're a talented team, and Campbell and his assistants are getting the most out of their players.
Yeah, they really are. And it's happened pretty quickly, too.
Do you think Aaron Glenn will get some run as a head coaching candidate this offseason?
I think he will get interviewed. the coach is definitely the hottest assistant in the league is Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. Texans interviewed him, liked him a lot. He immediately said, I need another year as a coordinator. Like the Texans are going to lose their coordinator, Bobby Slowick, came with Rico Ryan from San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan, protege. I don't think it'll be after 1 year as a coordinator. I think this time next year. And Ben Johnson's going to be the hottest assistant coach as soon as the season's over.
John, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, guys. Sick'em.
That's John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist with us on 365 Sports. It's 5:44. Yep.
Do you remember that championship game? Barry Sanders would have been playing back.
I remember. Eric Kramer was the was the quarterback. Washington they were loaded. Mark Rippon had a once-in-a-lifetime year. He had a couple of good years, but that was a team that, I think maybe lost a game or two, one at the end. They were 14-2, whatever the records were at that time, and then they basically just took Buffalo to task.
I remember
1991, Super Bowl 26.
My father and I cheering for the Bills 2 years in a row in the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay.
That beats cheering for them 4 years in a row.
Did you cheer for them? Yeah.
No, after that, it was
I was cheering for them in 94 and 95. I know that.
Yeah, I know. So.
No, 92 and 93 and 95. Yeah.
95
was
the
Steelers. Yeah.
No, I typically, if a Lions game was on, it wasn't like Calvin Johnson doing something. I could have cared less for the last several years, but it's cool to see what they're doing. It really is, and cool to see that crowd get so hyped up for winning. It's been so few and far between. So yeah, that's been a really neat story. And hope that it continues. It looks like it very well is set up to. But yeah, I totally get the Dan Campbell to A&M rumors. Again, Billy Liucci's kind of like the all-knowing on Texas A&M athletics, right? And I caught his, I guess, instant reaction type of a podcast to the Jimbo News on Sunday, and he mentioned that, they'll kick the tires on Dan Campbell, but they're also operating knowing that the chance is slim to zero that he's going to be interested given what – not only the fact that he's got one of 32 jobs, but he's it's not like he's losing. He's winning, and he's winning at a place that's never winning. And so it's an entirely unique scenario that you would not pack your bags up. You can go to A&M at any other point. You're a young coach still. You don't have to do that right now.
He's not. He's also if he was 8-8. He was a 500 coach of the Lions. You're he's doing an okay job with the Lions, but it's the Lions,
right.
And you can't. They don't have a good GM or whatever. And
it's usually the opposite. You don't go from the NFL to college very often.
No, but if the Lion, he's there, and it's just kind of a Midland job, and you know what, I am going to go take that A&M job. That'll be fun for me. I could see that, but there's no way that they've rejuvenated Jared Goff's career.
Mm-hmm.
They are drafting well.
I think
they're a functional NFL organization now.
And he's tough, but fair. Mm-hmm. And that's all you could ask for whatever level of football we're talking about with a coach. All right. When we come back, Paul Catalina and his top five. We have discussed all of it. The coach, we had the interview with the Oregon, Matt Prehm on Dan Lanning last night saying, nope, not going anywhere. And some of you I still see some flight tracker stuff from Eugene and College Station, which is always kind of fun to watch.
I believe him too. I still maintain just the way that he said
Dan
it.
Lanning? Absolutely.
I mean, just the way that he said it, how matter of fact he was. I didn't get the sense at all of he was with Kalen DeBoer of this is where I want to be, and I'm working with the school on trying to make sure that this is where I am. Dan Lanning was not talking that way at all. He's I'm paid well, I'm good, my family's here, I got young kids. He was hitting all the boxes that would
free Nike crap.
Yeah, he didn't sound like he has any interest whatsoever in doing that. And by the way, I'll just update you. The argument's still ongoing in the whole Washington State, Oregon State versus the Pac-12 hearing right now.
Is it going to take as long as realignment?
It does seem that it's very, just reading the tea leaves, and you knew this going in too if you've been following along, but it is an argument that favors the two. But that also will kickstart an appeal no matter what happens today. But yeah, that's still ongoing. I was hoping we'd maybe have an answer, but we got 13 minutes. So
favors a real general term, though.
All right.
Yeah. You're right.
Don't forget tonight at 10:30 on the CW 365 Sports. Tonight, Emery working on that. This is 365 Sports. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center, Valley Mills in Waco. I'm going to go back down again and go see my three brothers in Florida at some point in early December. And I will go by there and make sure that I pack up and get a nice chunk of cigars, although my oldest brother, Robert, will have plenty of them. And so will Philip. and also Mike. But I'm going to take mine down there too and make sure that I take what I want and also what I know they like and have a good time. And right now, when you want cigars, you need cigars, you want to buy cigars, maybe a Christmas present, Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills is where you can go. Also, they have a 48-foot walk-in humidor. So if you're looking for a specific brand of cigar, they'll have it. And if they don't, they will absolutely find it for you, but I bet they have it. THC product for very bad days. It's called for bad days. It's a THC product for very bad chronic migraine-type headaches and pain. And then also the CBD products, Vita Dreams, to help you. It's a gummy if you want to try to fall asleep a little bit easier, more relaxed, and take all that out of your head that you're always tossing and turning about. Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans, Carol, Cheyenne, Ashley, in the Town West Shopping Center off Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McClain County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Sausage wrap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
So, by the way, thanks to Unite Private Networks, UPN Internet, for what we have here and the high speed. We had to do some work and do some things on Friday that before used to take us forever to do, and we couldn't do the thing that we wanted to do in a reasonable amount of time. It literally cut it in half by an hour and 20 minutes.
Such a slacker.
It's unbelievable. So, yeah, zip, got everything done. But top 5 Mississippi State coaching candidates. I am going to admit to you now that when I did this yesterday,
you didn't know what you were talking about.
I left off Jamie Chadwell off this list, and now here he is today.
Pissed him off.
Maybe even.
Yeah, I still don't think that's real though, based on what I saw. I think you got duped by a Photoshop.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, I did
too. Yeah.
No, I didn't. I said I thought it was a Photoshop.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a Photoshop. It would have been great if it wasn't, but I am like 99.9% sure.
Paul was trying to get me to say something that wasn't true on the air, and
Well, look,
I wouldn't bite.
All I can tell you is the first comment on his actual tweet, I went and looked before I looked at it, was right after it was posted was, dude's location isn't Starkville. So, you know, that's all I can tell you. It was right after he did it, somebody posted that. So, you know, maybe they took it off. Maybe
Might
it's
have an
Photoshop.
uncle,
But
a grandmother, you know.
So I don't know.
But
anyway.
he will be somebody that kicked the tires on.
But yes, he will be. Yes, and he, you know, so just know that Jamie Chadwell will be an excellent hire.
But he's not on your list.
He's not on my list because I see him going somewhere differently, but, you know, Mississippi State's open
Other than
now.
to an SEC team?
To a different SEC team.
Okay.
That's what I think. But those jobs aren't open yet. So we'll see. Number 5. Look, if you want to try to keep the Mike Leach train going, Cliff Kingsbury. If that's what you really want. Now, this is unlikely because I doubt that he's moving from L.A. to Starkville, Mississippi.
For a head coaching job?
But it is a head coaching job. And it is an SEC job. And he has cachet. And eventually, he's a good enough coach where I think he's going to figure it out. But I don't know. But if you really want to keep the Mike Leach tree going, the best, most available Mike Leach tree coach to you, to me, would be Cliff Kingsbury. He has not had a lot of success as a college head coach. He had Patrick Mahomes and didn't go to a bowl game, like all those things. But he's still young, and if you want to run that system, there's the guy you need to go get.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what you want to do, I don't know. Have they given any indication about that? I mean, I guess they just did this move, so yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you wanted to keep it in the same family, that would make a lot of sense. You know, you wonder how Cliff's grown as a coach since he was, you know, really in the big seat there with the NFL, and now having to, you know, take a little bit of a demotion, and they're on Lincoln Riley's staff at USC. You know, has a great spot as an analyst, but yeah, I would have to imagine there's an itch to get back into that big chair. And so, you know, in the SEC, especially in this new era, an air raid established, as you mentioned there, at least the skeleton of it. That's poor. Yeah, I didn't mean that, but
just
you know what I mean.
Version.
The version of the air raid there. So yeah, that would be a hire that makes some sense because of the reasons you mentioned.
Yeah. Number 4, Manny Diaz. Killing it as the defensive coordinator at Penn State right now. Last week's game, notwithstanding, look, the Ohio State game they lost, but it wasn't because of Manny Diaz. And they held Michigan enough in check on defense to win the game if they had an offense. But his name's going to be hot. He's been at Mississippi State 2 other times before, so it would not surprise me to see them kick the tires on Manny Diaz. Now, he's had some varying success as a head coach, and obviously Miami ran him out the door to make room for Mario Cristobal, but I would not be surprised to see them, because they've had successful stints with him as their defensive coordinator in the past, maybe make him the head coach.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this would probably be down the list, but you have him at 4, so he's somewhat down the list. That's just not an appealing name to me, but maybe they would feel differently in Starkville because there's some of that familiarity. I just think, though, like with this, I think you're swinging big, and I don't think you get to him as far as your swings go until there's a few other guys that are checked off the list first. So, yeah, I mean, like maybe that's a name you eventually get back to, and there's that natural connection, but this to me is not like you need to rush to the table to throw your offer at the guy by any means.
Number 3, Glenn Schumann, Georgia co-defensive coordinator, young guy on the rise, is going to get some interviews. And in the SEC, like now you start pulling off I guess he kind of probably falls on both trees, but you start pulling off the Kirby Smart tree, and he's a young up-and-comer who certainly, you know, the SEC likes to hire from within, so to speak, coaches with experience recruiting in that league. And Glenn Schumann is probably one of the hottest young coaches in college football right now.
You know what? He's going to start experiencing, and Lanning left, and he'll start experiencing that 2 or 3 coordinators about every other year. You got to replace them, not because they're not productive or producing, but because other people want them because they're a part of the tree of Kirby Smart.
Yeah, I mean, up-and-coming guy, obviously, and you want to take your Dan Lanning, your version of that, right? Then that would be a smart play. Obviously, would be well-versed in what it takes in the SEC. But, yeah, hearing his name a lot, just as far as this carousel getting heated up. And, okay, yeah, I could see where you're going there.
Yeah, even though they are 5-5 this year, I'm throwing Charles Huff's name out there as the Marshall head coach. This is probably not the year for him, given how they've done. But I do think that people are going to kick the tires on him. He's a good young and up and coming coach. I do think that he bears looking at, and you could maybe switch Charles Huff out for Jamie Chadwell in this, because I kind of had that decision. I'm like, I'm going to lean Charles Huff on this one, but maybe this is the spot I should have had Jamie Chadwell in.
Yeah, I think Jamie Chadwell's way up the list in comparison, more so than any of these other guys. I won't pretend to know a whole lot about Charles Huff as far as why he would be the best candidate for this job. But I guess it does have a Mississippi State tie, so there is that. I guess is where you're going and circling back there, and has done an okay job at Marshall. I mean, they're, I think, a little bit above 500 during his tenure there. So I know he's a favorite of yours on these lists. He's a guy who gets mentioned for a lot of the potential openings. He doesn't seem to get close to a lot of the ones that we've had, but he does get mentioned quite a lot.
I should be.
Yeah,
I should be.
You absolutely should be.
I should be Jamie damn Chadwell's too. He's the first time he's not on the list.
That's the guy that you actually mentioned the most. But yeah, I mean, Huff has experience there in Starkville, so he got head coaching experience as well. So yeah, I mean, I don't know about two, but I see where you're going there.
You aren't Chadwell's agent. You didn't put him on a list for speculation.
This I should have, but again,
you're costing him money.
Look. I want so much for Jamie Chadwell because I think he's an excellent coach. I just wanted to be a better job than Mississippi State, maybe.
Okay.
That's what
I hope Mississippi State beats Florida State soon.
I don't know when they're going to play.
No, I know.
I mean,
college football championship next year with a new coach, Jamie Chadwell.
Yeah, sure. Good. Best of luck to them if that happens. Number 1, John Sumrall from Troy. They are tearing it up at Troy. He's got SEC pedigree. He's in that part of the country. He's going to get a bigger job than Troy. Mississippi State, you could make it you. I actually think this is even more of a fit than Jamie Chadwell, and I like Jamie Chadwell a lot, like I've said before. But John Sumrall from Troy, I would really take a hard look at him if I'm Mississippi State. The way that the Trojans play really translates well. I think it would be a fun hire for them. But, again, we'll see. And again, sometimes I really get close to the bullseye on these, and sometimes I'm way off.
I don't even know.
His name makes a lot of sense. He's a young guy, has a lot of experience just in the region, big defensive guy. So, if you want to play some nasty defense in Mississippi State, which is, what I think you're definitely looking to do there in the SEC, for a lot of those reasons I just mentioned, he's killing it at Troy. I mean, he's doing a tremendous job there at Troy and on a heck of a run. So I think that whether it's this job or others, he's definitely going to be a name we hear lots more of moving forward. And, I think that that's a guy who is definitely near the top. I think Jamie Chadwell should be up near the top a little bit more. And then I think you could probably look at, any number of thoughts, I guess, out in Mississippi State, country or SEC analysts or whatever who have their own versions of kind of how all the rest of it falls. But it does seem like Sumrall and Chadwell are two that make a heck of a lot of sense. That would be like hires that people would go okay, cool. Whereas the others, I'm not so sure. The one name I do see mentioned quite a lot, and it would be interesting, and Dan Mullen, whether or not he could be lured back to Starkville, but he's got the TV gig going. That's going pretty well, and would he want to go back to where he's already been and not wait for something,
And he left, the reason that he got fired at Florida, and I don't think he was that mad about it, was because he did not like the way that you have to recruit now.
Yeah, so does he even want to do that anymore?
So he was already recruiting into Georgia and Alabama and FSU and all these people in Miami and all that, and they're throwing all this money all over the place, and he didn't like it. And then he's going to go to Mississippi State, and then I don't have to. Yes, you're the same people. Nothing changes.
Even worse is that you're not going to get a lot of the head-to-head.
You're not in Florida.
Yeah.
So, although Mississippi's got some talent, but not to the extent of the Sunshine State, obviously. But I think it's going to be Kingsbury. I wasn't thinking about him. I forgot he was just in the universe out there floating in Southern California. Yeah. But I'm curious how involved he may get back in the college coaching ranks potentially.
But by the way, guys, this is neither here nor there, but I just wanted to let you know that Bruce Bochy finished second in the AL Manager of the Year voting. to Brandon Hyde of the Orioles,
who
they
had the best record.
Ish, man.
And they,
all right, the votes before the postseason.
Yeah, but
well,
even
that's
then.
stupid. That's I can't stand the. Well, I mean, I
No,
guess
it is. It's like the Heisman Trophy.
I don't like that either. I don't like
It's
that.
like anything MVP or anything. It's always.
I know. I don't like that though, because so many legends. But I guess you have your postseason MVP, and so that's how that works. That's fine. But I think that based on regular season, that's okay.
It's
but
a title.
Right. I mean, I'd rather have a World Series.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's what Bruce Bochy got, another one of those. But, yeah, I mean, Cliff there at SoCal, I am interested about, how much – I said college coaching, but he's at USC, but how much he's, potentially as a head coach again, a candidate. And, we got Mississippi State.
UNLV.
Yeah.
San Diego – no, Michigan State. Not San Diego State.
A&M,
Boise State. Boise State will be tomorrow.
Okay.
You're going to call your buddy Jeremiah?
No, I don't think he needs my help.
Well, he had to go to the podium and announce that the other day. I definitely saw that. And, that was his first big hire, so that it was a little personal, I'm sure, to have to fire Andy Avalos. That wasn't fun. But, yeah, they need to get Boise State back to where it was.
We got to go because Baylor women are about to host Utah, the number 4 team in the country. Women are ranked 21st. They're hosting that game at the Farrell Center, followed by a men's game right after that. So a double dip. We saw one of our owners, Ashley Hodge, who was here with us, along with Chris Weish. Baylor men against Kansas City. That game will come up at about 9 o'clock is the tip. For Garrett Ross, Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter, Levi Caraway, everybody, if you watch, listen, however, on the app or YouTube on 365 Sports, thank you. If you're a part of the text or the chat, or you just, again, a part of what we do every day, we appreciate you and our great sponsors. For Paul Catalina and for Craig Smoak, I'm David Smoak. Thanks to our guests. Good night, 365 Sports.